The world he lived in was destroyed. A massive portal opened in the sky and dropped countless monsters onto the earth. People had to fight these creatures just to survive, and he lived his entire life doing exactly that. Time passed quickly. A month, a year, and then 10 years went by in a blur of endless combat. He fought until he could cut down any monster with a single sword. Standing on top of a mountain of dead creatures, he wasn't afraid anymore. Then, the mastermind behind the chaos appeared. It was a massive, dark entity with glowing red eyes. The giant told him to give up, saying his talent was a waste, and offered him a chance to become his sword. He called it nonsense, and immediately charged forward. He leaped and swung his blade at the giant, but the creature easily deflected the attack. The giant told him he was nothing but an insect, and started swinging its massive weapon. He struggled to block the heavy strikes, and was heavily pushed back until the giant knocked him to the ground, battered and bleeding. As the giant stood over him, a blue crystal necklace around his neck suddenly started to glow. The dark entity recognized what it was, and panicked, reaching out and yelling at him to stop. It was too late. The crystal shattered and shot a beam of light into the sky. His body began to dissolve into light particles. As he faded away, he looked up at the starry night sky and a shooting star, thinking about how magnificent the view was. He is now in a modern city, looking like an ordinary young man with black hair. Wearing just a white t-shirt, shorts, and sandals, he walks straight up to Nansan Gate B in Seoul. A sign warns that public access is prohibited and recommends at least a C-grade rank, but he ignores it and forces his way inside. An alarm immediately blares, announcing that an unregistered hero has entered the gate. Inside, he finds himself walking through a dense forest. A party of fully armored heroes spots him. Seeing his casual clothes and backpack, they mistake him for a clueless porter who got abandoned by his team. The party's leader stops to lecture him, telling him that real gates aren't like what he sees on the internet. He tells him that being here without a license is suicide, and advises him to start at F-grade gates instead. He flatly tells the man he isn't grateful for the concern, and just walks right past them. One of the heroes gets mad at his attitude, but the leader tells his team to drop it, figuring the guy will just have to learn how harsh gates are firsthand. A moment later, a massive horned monster looms right behind him. The beast roars and brings its heavy weapon down. He easily steps aside to dodge the strike, noting to himself that it's been 10 years. He doesn't even draw a physical weapon. Instead, he simply uses his sword intent. An invisible massive blade of energy forms and cleanly slices through the giant monster. The creature is cut apart instantly and crashes dead into the dirt. Crouching down in the pool of its blood, he realizes that even in this new life, nothing is really different at all. He picks up the dead monster's curved sword. Slicing into the creature's body, he pulls out a glowing red crystal. It's a low-grade magic stone. In the past, he wouldn't even looked at something this inferior, but he tosses it into his backpack anyway. More orcs rush in. He easily fights them off, dodging their heavy strikes, kicking them away, and slicing them down with the stolen sword. After finishing them off, he checks his bag and notes the harvest is pretty poor, having only gathered about 30 low-grade stones. Elsewhere in the forest, the hero party from earlier is talking about him. The woman worries he might die, but the leader reassures her. Since he's an unauthorized intruder, elite agents from the Gate Control Center have surely been dispatched to find him. They figured he is just hiding and trembling somewhere waiting for a rescue. Just then, 3 men in black suits and sunglasses walk up to him. The leader introduces them as Gate Control Center agents and asks for his hero registration. Since he doesn't have one, they tell him to come with them. He finds the whole thing annoying. The leader tells a blonde agent to get the handcuffs out. The agent steps up, threatening physical pressure if he resists, and reaches for his arm. Before the agent can do anything, he grabs the man's wrist in a tight grip, telling them to stop being annoying and go back. The other 2 agents pull out electric stun batons. He recognizes them as magic sealing devices that might work on orcs, but not him. He casually throws the blonde agent into the other 2, knocking them back. He gives them a final warning to leave if they don't want to get hurt. The other 2 agents charge at him with their batons. He dodges their swings without breaking a sweat, and strikes them back, easily knocking them to the ground. The blonde leader watches in disbelief as he vanishes from sight and reappears right in front of him. With a quick punch to the gut, the leader is sent stumbling back, coughing up blood. He stands over the injured agent and asks him a few questions. The agent confirms that as long as registered heroes don't break the law inside a gate, the control center leaves them alone. He then asks about fracture zones. The agent explains that gates are controlled passages where monster byproducts are harvested for energy. Spaces that haven't been secured into gates yet are called fracture zones. Hearing this, he realizes that if he enters a fracture zone instead, the control center won't be automatically notified to track him down. The agent yells that fracture zones are incredibly dangerous and the Hero Association strictly monitors them, but he finds the man too annoying to listen to anymore. He just turns his back and walks away, leaving the frustrated agent behind, swearing to kill him next time. As he walks, he remembers what happened right after his death in his past life. Instead of disappearing completely, he woke up floating in a bright void. There he met the original owner of his current body, a young man named Seo Dojun. Dojun told him he was dying and asked him to take over his life and fulfill a request. At first he refused. After 10 years of endless fighting, betrayal, and losing his family and friends, he had no desire to keep living. Dejun understood, but pleaded with him to at least look after his remaining grandmother and a girl named Unyoung so they wouldn't have to suffer. Hearing this, he finally sighed, gave in, and asked the boy what he needed him to do. Back in the present, he arrives at the Gasan Digital Complex in Seoul, an area now packed with businesses dealing in monster byproducts. He walks into a magic stone exchange shop and dumps his unclean stones on the counter. The tattooed shop owner complains about the blood, but offers him a cup of coffee while he sorts the loot. After counting 12 low-grade, 16 low-mid-grade, and 5 high-low-grade stones, the owner offers him around 5.4 million won, casually mentioning a massive 40% commission fee. He stops the owner, questioning the absurd cut. The owner smirks, claiming he's actually giving him a discount from their usual 45%, and tells him to take his stones elsewhere if he doesn't like the price. He agrees and starts packing the stones back into his bag. The owner suddenly grabs his arm and demands a 350,000 won fee to cover the sorting, the coffee, and the towels used to clean the blood. He pulls his arm free and tells the owner to try and take the money by force. The owner grins, warning him that the shop is backed by a few C-grade heroes. Right on cue, 3 large thugs walk out from a back room, asking who is causing trouble. The lead thug steps up confidently, but the moment he locks eyes with him, he freezes. He glares back, and the thug's expression instantly drops into pure terror. Without throwing a visible punch, he knocks the lead thug for a glass display case and leaves the other 2 unconscious on the floor. He leans over the counter, telling the terrified owner that his commission is now exactly 1%. Smiling, he says he'll be back to do business again and walks out. He heads to a small, cramped apartment and drops a thick stack of cash on the floor in front of Dojun's grandmother and his young half-sister, Yoonyoung. The grandmother is suspicious of the money, so he lies and says a friend he helped out in the past became successful and paid him back. Yoonyoung jumps up, asking if they are rich now. He pats her head and agrees. Watching them celebrate, he thinks about his promise to the original Dojun. The safest house in Korea costs 11 billion won. He doesn't feel obligated to keep a one-sided promise, but figures that kind of money is nothing once his strength returns. Even with less than 10% of his power back, the gates and monsters in this world are child's play compared to his old life as the sword god. Loud banging on the front door interrupts them. He tells his family to stay inside and steps out into the hallway. 2 loan sharks are waiting for him. They demand the money he just made, claiming his original 5 million won loan for his grandmother's hospital bills has ballooned to 48 million won. One of the thugs swings a punch. He casually steps inside the guard and drives his fist into the man's gut, sending him crashing hard into the wall. He grabs the second thug by the collar, pointing out they've already paid back over 9 million won. He tells the terrified man to let his boss know he'll be visiting soon, then punches him clean into the sky. Later, he takes Unyoung to a shopping mall. After buying her new clothes, they stand in front of a toy store. He realizes that absorbing Dojun's memories has slightly thawed his own dried-up emotions, and he decides he wants to protect the young girl's happiness. When she shyly picks out a tiny rabbit doll, he grabs a massive bear instead, telling her she can buy whatever she wants. They sit down to eat at the food court. While they eat, a blonde woman flanked by 2 large bodyguards walks up to their table. She recognizes him as Seojan and mocks his cheap clothes. Then, she looks down at Unyoung and asks if the little girl caused an accident just like his mother did. Hearing this, he stops eating. His expression goes completely cold, and a heavy tension instantly fills the air around the table. Unyoung just looks up with a mouthful of food, confused about who the woman is. The blonde woman asks Unyoung her name. When Unyoung answers, the woman mocks her, calling her shabby just like her mother. When he stays silent, she gets more aggressive, calling the little girl a slut and comparing her to an ugly orc. Listening to her, he recalls the original Dojun's past. He was an illegitimate child whose mother died when he was 7. Sent to live with his biological father, he endured a decade of abuse. After the legal life had a son, he was completely ignored and eventually kicked out to live in poverty with his grandmother and half-sister. Thinking about what the original Dojun went through, he decides things will be different from now on. The blonde woman keeps ranting, insulting his looks and intelligence. He just stares at her and calmly asks what she just said. Before she can respond, an older woman walks up. The blonde girl immediately runs over, calling her mom, and starts whining about him. The mother silences her daughter and puts on a fake smile, asking how he's been and claiming his father is worried about him. He recognizes her from the memories as the stepmother who tormented him the most for 12 years. He bluntly tells her the fake act makes him sick and tells her to get lost. Both women are stunned, realizing the old, submissive Dojun who always bowed his head is gone. Later, the mother and daughter are riding in a car. The daughter complains about him, but the mother ignores her and asks her driver, Manager Lee, why Dojun is still alive. The driver nervously explains that their hired man definitely left Dojun to die inside a gate. The daughter overhears this and panics, realizing her mother ordered a hit on him. She worries about what her father or grandfather will do if they find out. The mother grabs her daughter's face hard, telling her to mind her own business and let her handle it. Fuming over the fact that he dared to talk back to her, the mother silently swears to get rid of him no matter what. 10 years ago, fracture zones and monsters appeared, plunging the world into chaos. That ended when heroes stepped up and magic stones became the world's new main energy source. Now, the entire global economy revolves around gates, and the best way to make real money is to become a hero. Knowing this, he heads straight to the loan shark's main office. He walks right in and finds the two thugs from earlier standing next to their boss. The boss assumes he must have awakened some low-level powers inside a gate and gotten cocky. Wanting compensation for his beaten men, the boss signals his crew of D-grade thugs to put him in his place and tells him to sit down. He ignores the order, stating he isn't done talking. When a thug charges at him, he easily blocks the strike and slams the guy into the furniture. He then steps up and punches the boss right in the face. Another thug attacks from behind, but he just elbows him to the floor without looking. Seeing his crew get destroyed in seconds, the boss panics, realizing his power is way beyond a D grade or even a C grade. He grabs the bleeding boss by the collar and asks if Hong Hee-ju, his stepmother, ordered them to kill him. The blonde thug from earlier nervously speaks up, saying the woman told them she hoped the massive debt would just push him to commit suicide. He asks the boss if they were the ones who trapped him inside the gate. The boss frantically denies it, explaining that if he died, they wouldn't get their money back. He thinks for a second and remembers the name Kang Cholu, the man who actually took him to the gate. He lets go of the boss and gives him two orders. First, knowing they run illegal operations, he demands they forge him a flawless hero ID by tomorrow so he can start making money. Second, they need to dig up all the information they can find on Kang Chol-woo. He walks out of the office and thinks about the original Dojon's final request to protect his grandmother and sister. He decides that while he's taking care of them, he might as well set everything else straight too. He gets his forged hero ID. It is a B rank. He walks up to a terminal, scans the card, and the system confirms his registration. He steps into the Bomseong gate, ignoring the system warnings that his rank is below the recommended level. The gate is a B grade, D-scale tunnel that only allows a maximum of 2 people to enter. Because of the solo play format, anyone inside has to face hundreds of monsters alone in a dark, cramped space. Walking in, he thinks the loan shark boss should have just forged him an A-grade ID. A giant green snake suddenly lunges at him. It is a Black Death Viper, a monster with poison that can paralyze a person with just a graze. He easily dodges its bite and starts tearing through the snakes with his bare hands. Thanks to his poison-resistant gloves, he slaughters them without an issue. After clearing out the area, he checks the bodies but finds 0 magic stone. Since the drop rate for these vipers is only around 3%, he realizes he will need to kill a few hundred of them to get a decent haul. He heads deeper into the tunnel, stepping past the scattered bones of dead adventurers, until he encounters the gate's boss. It is a massive golden snake. The beast attacks, and he easily dodges, countering with a heavy punch to its body. The strike pushes the snake back, but doesn't pierce its tough scales. He realizes his bare fists aren't going to work here, and wishes he had his old strength back. Looking around, he spots a dull sword lying next to a dead adventurer. He walks over and picks it up, noting that no matter how old a sword is, its power depends entirely on who wields it. Armed with the blade, he charges at the boss. In one swift motion, he swings the borrowed sword and completely obliterates the giant snake's head in a massive flash of light. With the boss dead, he rips out one of its large fangs. It is a bit short for a long sword, but he figures if he polishes it up, it will make a usable weapon. He notes that the earnings from this gate are much better than the Namsan gate. He finally steps out of the gate, and it is already nighttime. Looking up at the moon, he's annoyed that it took him so much time just to clear a single B-grade gate. Clenching his fist, he makes recovering his full strength his top priority, quietly glad that his old comrades from his past life aren't around to see him looking this weak. He heads back to the Magic Stone exchange shop. Inside, another hero is selling his stones. The tattooed owner, now sporting a black eye and bandages from their last encounter, takes his usual massive 40% commission. The customer complains about the price, but accepts it anyway, since the shop doesn't keep transaction records for taxes. When the customer asks about the bruised face, the owner starts whining about a crazy guy who came in and beat up all his C-grade guards. Just then he walks through the door. The owner completely freaks out and points right at him. The customer, wanting to act tough, steps up and introduces himself as a 7-year veteran hero. He scolds him for causing a ruckus and beating up civilians. He just stares at the man and tells him to mind his own business and get lost. The veteran gets angry, but his survival instincts suddenly kick in. Remembering that accidental fights with other heroes are a leading cause of death, the veteran quickly backs down, makes an excuse about being busy, and runs out of the store. Left alone with the terrified owner, he asks if the man has any complaints. He then unzips his bag and dumps his loot onto the counter. A massive pile of bright red high-grade magic stones spills out. The owner is stunned, sweating as he wonders what this guy's true identity is to have gathered so many high-tier drops. He punches the numbers into his calculator and stammers that the total is 150 million won. He's actually a bit disappointed that a whole day of hunting only earned him 150 million, but tells the owner to hand over the cash. The owner nervously squeaks out that they still need to deduct the commission. He shoots the man a deadly glare. Terrified, the owner instantly remembers their previous deal and frantically corrects himself, confirming the commission is exactly 1%. Satisfied, he gives a small smirk. He demands his 148.5 million won. The owner hesitates, making an excuse that transactions over 100 million require permission from higher-ups. He tells the owner to get permission right now. The owner nervously dials his boss. He snatches the phone, tells the boss to hand over the money, and casually suggests they replace their current staff. He tosses the phone, shattering it against the wall behind the terrified owner. The owner quickly agrees and hands over a large bag packed with cash. He walks out, cheerfully telling the crying owner they should do business again next time. 10 minutes later, the owner's boss tries calling the shop to figure out what just happened. The battered owner just says he wants to quit because he can't handle it anymore. Realizing the situation is serious, the boss makes a call and tells someone named Juan to head over. Soon after, a woman with long purple hair walks through the city, drawing stares from everyone around her. She steps into the magic stone shop. The owner is stunned, recognizing her immediately. She is Haeon Juan, South Korea's 4th S-grade hero and the niece of the shop's boss. She takes his seat, mentioning that her uncle is having a headache over a hero forcing magic stone sales, and asks the owner to tell her the details. Dojun realizes that making 100 million won from a full day of hunting is too slow. He needs to hunt S-grade gates alone as soon as possible. To do that, he has to regain his past power. The problem is the sparse mana in this world. Even if he gathers it every day, it would take more than 3 years to recover. He also needs weapons and equipment, but even trash-tier gear here costs hundreds of millions. Suddenly, he senses something. He rushes over to Eun-young, scoops her up and carries her inside the house just as the ground starts shaking violently. The grandmother assumes it's an earthquake, but massive dark vines erupt from the yard. Dojun recognizes it as a fracture. He tells his family to stay hidden in their room and dashes straight into the anomaly while they yell his name. At the Seoul Hero Association, alarms go off. A new fracture has appeared in Mappo, the first in 63 days. The team leader orders his staff to contact the White Lion Guild and dispatch nearby heroes. He panics when he hears the location is a residential yard. If a civilian enters a new fracture, no one else can enter until they come out. If that civilian guy's inside, a monster wave will pour out of the fracture zone for 10 days, which would devastate Seoul. The staff identifies the person who entered as Sodo-jun. Because he isn't a registered hero, the system calculates a 99.9% chance of a monster wave occurring. Elsewhere, a blonde woman slams her desk in anger. She just found out Dojun awakened his abilities during his last Gabe incident. She curses a man named Kang Chul-lu for complicating things and not killing Dojun directly when he was hired to. She orders manager Lee to demand a tenfold refund from him. Manager Lee tells her they don't need to bother. He explains that Dojun just entered the new Mappo fracture. Assuming Dojun is as good as dead, the woman decides to just watch the news and wait for his death to be confirmed. Inside the fracture, Dojun lands in a lush forest. He recognizes it as the Pachysera forest he used to visit as a child. The trees, the wind, and the abundant mana feel exactly the same. He follows a familiar path and finds the World Tree, an ancient sacred tree that holds the flow of pure mana. In his past world, the destruction of this very tree ruined the mana flow and caused the world's downfall. Seeing the tree completely intact here, Dojun smiles, realizing he can use it to regain his old power. Dojun sits in front of the World Tree, absorbing its pure energy. Forgetting even to eat or drink, he focuses solely on his breathing for 10 straight days. On the 10th night, he opens his eyes as he senses movement. A group of volcano monsters emerges from the dark woods. Dojun instantly recognizes them as the bastards who burned down the World Tree in his past life. As the monsters charge at him, Dojun notes that it would be nice to have a water attribute sword right now, but decides it doesn't matter. He plans to smash them all to pieces anyway. He gathers a dense aura of blue mana into his hand and unleashes a massive blast forward. He uses a technique called mana release, taking the mana he just accumulated and exploding it outward in the form of ki. The blast completely wipes out the charging monsters. Taking a breath, he remarks that it has been a long time since he poured out that much mana. With the World Tree's safety confirmed, Dojun decides to physically test the new mana in his body. Another surviving monster lunges at him from the side. Dojun casually catches it by the face with a glowing hand and blasts it at point-blank range, obliterating it. The monster disintegrates, leaving behind a red magic stone. Dojun steps over the stone, confirming his strength. He smiles, remembering that hunting these specific monsters comes with a high probability of dropping an item called Undying Embers. Excited to see how much loot he can get, he rushes into the rest of the pack, beating them all down with hand-to-hand combat. After clearing the area, he finds several red magic stones and glowing yellow coins scattered across the ground. He reaches down and picks up one of the yellow items. It instantly ignites into a ball of flames in his palm. He confirms it is an Undying Ember. Jujen realizes that while it would be great to get more raw mana from the World Tree, his current physical body is at its limit and can't handle anymore. Instead, he plans to absorb these embers to change his mana into a fire attribute. In his past life, he was strong enough that he never needed to bother absorbing embers like this. Now, his body is so weak that it takes him 10 full minutes just to absorb a single one. Looking down at the glowing pile of embers scattered in the dirt, he decides to stay and absorb as many as he can. Outside the house, a large crowd of civilians and reporters gather around the massive dark fracture vines. Two suited men from a guild stand nearby on guard. The taller one, Bong Song-woo, complains about the mess caused by one crazy guy. The blue-haired guy, Kim Hyun-woo, mentions the rumor that the man went in to save his younger sister. Song-woo dismisses this, believing the guy just wanted to awaken his powers in the fracture zone. He curses the man for being a public nuisance instead of just dying alone. Hyun-woo asks what their guildmaster says about the situation. Song-woo explains they just have to follow the manual and wait for the monster wave. He adds that the guildmaster is busy because fractures just appeared simultaneously in the US, China, UK, Turkey, and Switzerland. This has never happened before. While those other countries got their fractures under control early, Sung-woo complains that they are stuck waiting because of the civilian who went in first. He promises to beat the guy up if he ever comes out. 28 days pass. The fracture vines are still hovering over the residential yard. The Hero Association announces a level 1 monster wave alert on the news, stating that the civilian who entered, labeled Mr. S. This is 4 days at exit before they assume he is dead and prepare for the monsters to pour out. In an office, a boss named Manager Kim Aeon-do watches the news broadcast. He asks his subordinate to confirm if Mr. S is actually Seo-jun. The subordinate confirms it. The boss asks about the probability of Do-jun returning alive. The subordinate says, if he's a civilian, the chances are not even 0.1%. The boss laughs, calling that ridiculous, and stating the Hero Association is missing information. A bandaged man in the room asks, what happens if Do-jun is actually an awaken? The subordinate replies that it depends on his grade, noting that being good at fighting and actually surviving a fracture are two different things. The boss points out that Do-jun has 2 family members, and suggests they steer them. When asked for his plan, the boss says they will treat the grandmother and sister nicely for now. If Do-jun dies, they will sell the family's organs. If he comes back alive, they will claim they took care of his family and force him into debt. Back inside the fracture, Go-jun stands in front of the world tree, completely engulfed in swirling yellow flames. He wonders how much time has passed. He looks at his glowing hands, realizing he has successfully absorbed hundreds of the undying embers. He can now use fire attribute mana freely, and his fire resistance has drastically increased. He notes that in terms of the fire attribute alone, he is currently in a superior state compared to his past life when he was known as the Sword God. He places his hand on the world tree and thanks it. He gathers his looted red magic stones into a neck bag and promises the tree that if they ever meet again and it is in danger, he will protect it. He then walks it. June steps out of the fracture and back into his neighborhood at night. He immediately senses the area and notices there is no presence within a 1-kilometer radius, assuming everyone evacuated in preparation for the wave. However, he detects a strong aura nearby. He peeks around the wall and spots Sun-woo and Hyung-woo standing guard. He recognizes their guild outfits from the last gate and decides it will be troublesome if they discover him. To create a distraction, Do-jun forms a ring of fire mana in his hand and shoots it at a distant building. The blast causes a loud explosion and instantly starts a large fire. The 2 guild members hear the noise, spot the flames, and run off to investigate the sudden blaze. Do-jun watches them leave, admiring the precision and nature of his new flames. He thinks to himself that Kusak, the strongest fire mage from his past life, would have been impressed. As the guild members run toward the fire, Hyun-woo suddenly stops and looks back. He points out that the fracture is acting strangely. Sung-woo turns and sees the massive dark vines slowly disintegrating and disappearing into the night sky. Meanwhile, Go-jun calmly walks up the stairs to his house with his bag of magic stones slung over his shoulder. Officially, the government, Hero Association, and media treated Do-jun as a dead man who vanished along with the Mappo fracture. Sitting in a fast food restaurant with his hood pulled up, Go-jun scrolls to the news on his phone. He realizes that revealing he survived would only cause troublesome situations right now. He tells his sister, Yoon-young, that a man named Hwang Chang-seop will find them a new house soon, so they can take their time moving. Yoon-young happily eats her burger. She says it's a good thing they are moving, so she can go to kindergarten, like the other kids, and start regular school next year. However, she suddenly looks down sadly. Do-jun notices and asks why she doesn't like kindergarten. She admits the other kids keep teasing her for not having a mom and dad. Do-jun's eyes narrow. He immediately tells her she doesn't have to go back. He says there is no need to see those kids again, and they can just wait until she starts school next year. Eun-young's face lights up, relieved she doesn't have to return. Watching her, Do-jun internally wonders if he should just send her to a prestigious private school so no one can ever look down on her. He remembers the night he returned. Hong Shine-sep's glasses-wearing subordinate had legend down the hallway of a motel. The subordinate assured Do-jun that their company managed the building, guaranteeing their safety. Do-jun ignored him and opened a door to the room. Inside, Yoon-young yelled his name and ran into his arms crying. His grandmother grabbed his hands, weeping in relief that he came back alive. Seeing their tears, Do-jun softened and gently confirmed he was really back. Back at the restaurant, Yoon-young asks Do-jun if he is a hero too. He asks if she would like it if he was. She shakes her head and says she hopes he isn't. She explains that heroes have to fight scary monsters, and sometimes they die. She and their grandmother just want him to live with them for a long, long time. Do-jun thinks back to his past life. In that harsh world, he was the only human who survived until the very end. He lost countless things during his endless time fighting monsters. Now, he realizes something precious he had forgotten is sitting right beside him. He decides he can live his life just protecting this small happiness. At the Republic of Korea Hero Association headquarters, Director Na Tae-hong stands by a large window. His assistant reports that they still cannot find out any information regarding the disappeared fracture. Tae-hong finds it frustrating, knowing a fracture that vanishes on its own could easily reappear someday. The assistant remarks that variables are dangerous, suggesting it would have have been better if the monster wave had just occurred normally. Taehyung glares at her sharply, warning her to watch her words. He reminds her that considering the safety of the citizens, a prevented wave is incredibly fortunate. She quickly bows and apologizes. Taehyung is one of the top 100 most respected heroes in the world. He has enough influence to be elected president or dismantle major conglomerates, but his only interests are citizens' safety and fracture preparedness. He orders his assistant to keep investigating the anomaly thoroughly. She agrees and mentions that the residents of the house where the fracture appeared agreed to sell the property. Taehyung tells her to pay them well above the market price, hoping the extra money provides some comfort for the grief of losing their family member. Taehyung sits at his desk, looking at a global map on his laptop. He notes that fractures occurring simultaneously in multiple countries isn't ordinary. The assistant mentions that the US and China have already entered the control phase, but the problem is England. Reliable heroes were dispatched there, but the situation remains tense. Suddenly an alert chimes on Taiwan's computer. His eyes widen in shock as he reads the notification. He stammers that they can't be happening. The assistant asks what's wrong. An emergency breaking news broadcast flashes across the screen, announcing that a massive monster wave has just broken out from the fracture in England. Dejun walks down the city street in his gray hoodie and enters the Magic Stone purchasing shop he visited before. As soon as he walks in, the brown-haired kid behind the counter recognizes him and screams, hiding behind his manager. The manager steps up, glaring at Dejun, and tells him they aren't doing business with him. He orders Dejun to take his bag and leave, pulling out his phone to call the police. Dojun simply asks if they don't want to trade, and ticks his bag over the counter. Red magic stones spill out, along with a glowing blue star-shaped crystal. The manager freezes in shock. He recognizes it immediately as a hero's magic crystal, an ultra-rare, legendary item that drops from awakened boss monsters. Realizing the massive value sitting in front of him, the manager's attitude instantly flips. He and the kid bow completely over the counter in respect, frantically offering Dojun a seat. Dojun sits with an iced coffee and looks over the deal. He asks the manager if a 5 billion won payout is a bit much, wondering why the shop is taking such a massive loss on their usual cut. The manager sweats, internally cursing Dojun for being a rude prick. He knows that magic crystals are so rare that some companies buy them with zero commission fees. Assuming Dojun knows the standard rate, the manager starts desperately bidding down his own commission to secure the deal. He yells out 9%, then drops to 8%, claiming his boss will kill him. Dojun tells him to stop losing money, but the manager keeps going, shouting 7%, then 6%. He finally drops to his knees on the floor, begging Dojun to sell it to them for a 5% cut. Dojun watches the pathetic display and calmly mentions that he has about 7 more bags just like this one. The manager and the kid stare at him, completely dumbfounded. The manager snaps out of it and screams at the kid to get the contracts ready immediately. Later, Dojun looks at the deposit confirmation on his phone. He realizes that earning enough to buy a 40 billion won house won't take long at this rate. He thinks about how he needs to hunt in higher grade fractures to get more legendary crystals, wishing he could travel freely through the rift zones to find them. Just then, his phone beeps with an emergency notification. He checks the screen and sees the administrative alert from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, warning citizens about the massive monster wave outbreak in the UK. Dojun reads it and casually sighs, thinking it was actually something serious. Dojun reads the alert about the UK fracture on his phone. He reflects that, in his past life, an association director would have handled this immediately regardless of the country. But things are different now. He puts his phone away and takes his grandmother and Yunyum to a high-end Korean BBQ restaurant. Looking at the menu, his grandmother worries that 250,000 won for a small portion of meat is too expensive. Dojun smiles, taking a sip of water, and reassures her that he made a lot of money. He tells her to eat as much as she wants. Eun-young happily stuffs her face with the grilled meat. A waitress comes over when Dojun tries to order more. She hesitates, awkwardly asking if they can really afford it since the bill is getting high. Godong calmly tells her to just get the receipt ready because he will pay up front. The grandmother happily continues feeding Eun-young. While they eat, a woman with long purple hair walks into the restaurant. It's the S-grade hero Hyunji-young. She walks straight to their table and asks if he is Seo-jun. She asks for a moment to talk. Dojun notices she is a hero and bluntly tells her not to bother him while he's eating. Juyeon tries to formally introduce herself, but Dojun just dismisses her with a simple alright and goes back to his food. Annoyed by being completely brushed off, Juyeon goes to sit in the waiting area. Other customers in the restaurant start whispering, recognizing her as the famous S-rank hero and wondering who she is waiting for. Juyeon ignores them and watches Dojun from a distance. She confirms he is indeed the man the Hero Association believes died in the Mappo Rift. She recalls how just a single look from him earlier made her feel on edge. However, she reasons that a newly awakened person reaching S-rank in under 2 months is impossible. She notes that even the fastest known awakened took 5 years to reach that level. She concludes there is no way he is S-rank and assumes he must just have some kind of special ability. Dojun and his family finish their meal. As Dojun thanks the staff and stands up to leave, a massive blonde man blocks his path. The man smiles mockingly, acting surprised to see Dojun alive and wondering how he escaped the gate. Dojun immediately recognizes the man as Kang Chol-woo. Chol-woo calls Dojun a cockroach and aggressively grabs him by the front of his hoodie. Yuyeon watches the confrontation unfold from her seat. Dojun casually looks over at her and calls out, reminding her that she wanted to talk to him. He tells her he is busy right now and asks her to take his grandmother and sister outside and get them a taxi home. Yueon is caught off guard by the sudden request but agrees. With his family safely out of the way, Dojan's eyes glow a fierce yellow. He glares up at Cholu and calmly states that he has some debt to collect. Cholu just grins back at him. Outside, Jian helps Dojan's grandmother and Eunyoung into a taxi. She waves goodbye to the little girl as the car safely drives away. Inside the restaurant, Cholu still has Dojan grabbed by the shirt. He gets furious, asking if Dojan thinks this is a joke, and threatens to kill him. The other customers panic, screaming as they run out the door. Cholu swings a massive punch of Dojan's head. Dojan easily ducks the swing, steps in, and buries his fist deep into Cholu's stomach. Cholu gasps, coughing up saliva as he collapses to his knees. Dojan looks down at him and mocks him for being a bastard abandoned by his father. He asks if Cholu's stepmother ordered him to kill him. Dojan pulls out his phone, opens the voice recorder, and tells Cholu to say it again. Enraged by the insult, Cholu curses at Dojan. His arm engulfs in flames as he lunges forward, screaming that Dojan will die right here. Dojan effortlessly catches the fiery fist with one bare hand. Cholu is stunned that his attack bounced off completely. Dojan then channels his own blue mana and strikes Cholu with a devastating counterpunch, sending him flying across the room and crashing into the tables. Behind the counter, the terrified restaurant manager is frantically dialing the police. Juyeon walks over, presses the end call button on the manager's phone, and calmly assures her that she will handle the situation. The manager recognizes the famous hero and thanks her. Daejeon mounts Chowol and mercilessly rains down heavy punches, completely destroying him. Juyeon watches the brutal one-sided beatdown, analyzing Daejeon's strength. She figures he must be at least an A grade to handle a guy like Chowol so easily. She finally calls out to Daejeon to stop. Daejeon pauses with his fist raised. Juyeon asks if he knows who Chowol really is. She explains that Cholu's cousin is an S-grade hero named Kan Young-pyo. Daejeon drops Cholu and casually replies that he already knows. Juyeon is shocked by his recklessness. She warns him that Kan Young-pyo protects Chowol, which is why the guy gets away with running wild. She tells Daejeon that what he just did is extremely dangerous, and that Young-pyo won't care about whatever grudge they have. Daejeon just smirks. Yeon asks if he really isn't afraid of Kan Young-pyo. Daejeon steps right up to her face. He tells her that what actually bothers him is how much she seems to know about him. He then reminds her that she promised to take care of the mess with the manager, and casually walks out of the restaurant. Mrs. Hyun looks surprised, and admits she didn't expect him to catch on so fast. She tells Dojeon that her guildmaster wants to see him. Dojeon casually asks why he should bother going. She smiles and says it's because they have something he wants. Dojeon looks back at the unconscious Chulwoo on the floor, realizing she's already done a full background check on him. Meanwhile, a blonde woman in a red dress throws a glass at the wall, shattering it. A bald man in a suit stands by nervously as she yells, demanding to know who dared to attack Chulwoo. The man tells her a high school student named Seo Dojin beat him up. She gets angry, worrying about the media finding out. She orders the man to contact the association immediately to block the news from spreading, and tells him to gather a list of fighters they can use to handle it. The bald man leans in and whispers to her that a specific guild is already involved. Knowing the guild's immense wealth, resources, and powerful fighters, the woman curses, realizing the situation just got a lot more complicated. Meanwhile, Dojeon accepts the invitation. He walks alongside Mrs. Hyun up to a large gated building that serves as the guild's headquarters, escorted by several men in black suits. A man hands Dojeon a gold A-class hunter ID card, giving him exactly what he requested. A day or two earlier, Dojeon, Mizyeon, and a team of hunters walk through a dark dungeon cave. Mizyeon complains to the green-haired team leader about being dragged along. The leader just tells her to stop whining. Watching Dojeon walk ahead, Mizyeon wonders if he is really the kid from the rumors, because he acts way too relaxed for a dungeon run. They step out of the cave into a bright, lush forest. The team leader explains they are there to investigate a field boss they discovered recently, not to hunt it. Suddenly, one of the hunters stops and points out that the monster they were tracking is already dead on the ground. Before they can figure out what killed it, a giant bird monster flies down toward the group. Jo-yeon orders her team into defensive positions and tells them to target the legs. Before they can move, Dojeon sprints past them. He charges straight at the bird. His fist glows with golden energy, and he punches the monster right in the face. The impact slams the bird into the ground. A team member asks if it is dead, but Juon says not yet. Dojeon jumps high into the air, says this is how it dies, and stomps directly on the monster's head, crushing it. The team watches in shock. A short-haired woman asks Juon what that person is. Juon sweats and says he is just a strong human. The woman grabs Juon by the clothes, asking if that is a real answer, and wondering how many heroes like him are out there. The short-haired woman points out that Juon could also take down a Caucastrian. Juon corrects her, emphasizing how crazy it is that Dojeon knocked the monster bird down in a single hit during aerial combat before it could even dodge. Juon watches Dojeon, wondering about his true identity. The short-haired woman suggests changing their plan to check the control area, but Dojun suddenly interrupts them. He crouches by the dead monster, cuts it open, and extracts a red core. He tells Juyeon he has no intention of sharing with people who contributed nothing. Juyeon notes that his skills are too good for this area, asking if he plans to head deeper inside. Dojun smirks, says that sounds interesting, and offers to lead since he knows the geography. He tells them to follow closely so they don't get lost. Instantly, Dojun dashes forward at blinding speed, leaving a massive shockwave and a cloud of dust behind him. The team is left stunned by his speed. The short-haired woman remarks that if Yueon is a bullet, that man is light itself. Realizing it's impossible to keep up with him, the rest of the team decides to just stick to hunting around the perimeter like usual. The short-haired woman reflects that despite being praised as A-grade heroes, they are just infinitely small extras compared to S-grades like Yueon and this mysterious man. Dojun runs ahead at incredible speed, leaving Yueon struggling to keep up. He looks back and asks if she can go faster. Yueon is shocked, knowing she is one of the top 2 fastest people in the country. He stops suddenly, and she skips to a halt. He tells her she is slower than he thought. Yueon gets defensive and catches her breath. Dojun then looks toward a massive mountain peak in the distance and asks, "What is over there?" Yueon turns serious and explains that it is the location of the Preserve Zone's boss monster. She asks if he has heard of Carrion, a 20-meter giant monster that resembles a pterodactyl. Realizing his intentions, Yueon panics and asks what he is trying to do. She yells at him to stop, but Dojun completely ignores her and dashes off straight toward the mountain. Yueon is left in shock as Dojun blurs past her at an unbelievable speed. By the time she finally reaches the mountain peak, she is completely stunned by what she sees. Dojun is already standing over the massive lifeless body of the boss monster, Carrion. He's casually using a sword to cut into the creature. Joyeon can hardly process what just happened. She knows how incredibly dangerous Carrion is. During the first ever hunt for this monster, a famous S-grade hero named Park Hae-yeol brought a team of 50 A-grade heroes. The hunt was a disaster. Every single A-grade hero was wiped out, and Park Hae-yeol barely managed to escape with his life. Later, Park organized a massive revenge raid. He gathered another S-grade hero and 200 A-grade heroes for the fight. They had to use specialized energy chains and giant stakes to bind and attack the beast. They eventually succeeded in killing Carrion, but even with that massive army, most of the participating heroes still died in the battle. Despite that bloody history, Gojun just managed to kill the exact same boss monster completely on his own in a matter of seconds. Now, he is just quietly kneeling by its body, cutting into it to harvest the core like it was nothing. The short-haired woman realizes the insane amount of magic stones isn't even the craziest part. If what Jiyeon told them is true, Gojun managed to hunt the boss monster Korean completely alone, without using any special equipment or a combat suit. She sweats just thinking about it, realizing that beating Korean solo instantly makes him the strongest hero in South Korea. She looks up at Dojun standing on a rocky peak and corrects herself. He might actually be the strongest hero in the world. Dojun walks back to the group and drops his heavy bags on the ground. He clearly warns Juyeon not to talk about what just happened anymore. Watching them from a distance, the other team members joke that the two look like they are flirting and make a pretty good couple. Suddenly, Dojun shoves one of the bags into Juyeon's hands. Without another word, he turns around and walks away. The short-haired woman is confused and asks if he really just left without saying bye-bye, and what they are supposed to do with all the expensive magic stones he left behind. Yuan explains that she warned him he would become instantly famous if people found out he caught Carrion solo. In response, Dojun just said that fame is bothersome, and told her to take the credit and handle it for him. The short-haired woman is completely baffled, asking what kind of man leaves all that behind. Yuan looks down, blushing slightly, and quietly wonders the exact same thing. Meanwhile, at the BYY gym, S-grade hero Park Hae-yeol is aggressively punching a heavy bag. He curses in frustration. His manager steps in to hand him a towel and tells him to calm down. The manager reassures him that enduring this tough time will only make his reputation rise later. He tells Hae-yeol that his struggles will build up into a solid force, and soon everyone will kneel before him. Hae-yeol agrees, saying this is how he will strike back at the people looking down on her. The manager continues to hype him up, reminding him that no one knows more about defeating Katherian than he does. The manager says Hae-yeol will eventually be known as the hero who cleared the boss monster with the smallest team in the world, and that the Hero Association might even give him exclusive rights to hunt it. Hae-yeol takes a water bottle and laughs, agreeing that no one knows the monster like he does. He looks at a framed photo of his old raid team. He admits that people call him a failure compared to 3 years ago, but he confidently states that he is still the only person in the world who can take down that giant bird. His manager enthusiastically agrees, and they both laugh loudly together inside the gym. At the exact same time, a news article featuring Saedujun's face appears. S-rank hero Kan Young-pyo reads a report and confirms that Saedujun is the same person his cousin, Kang Chol-woo, tried to kill by throwing him into a gate a few months ago. Dojun survived and returned. Young-pyo's assistant explains the hit was ordered by Hung Yoo-jin, an executive from Y Group. Dojun is an illegitimate son of T Group who was kicked out after Yoo-jin had her own son. Chol-woo was paid 3 billion won for the job, but ended up severely beaten by Dojun. The assistant reports that Chol-woo is now completely blind and paralyzed for life. Young-pyo calls Dojun vicious, but says he would have done worse himself. While practicing his golf swing, Young Pyo listens as the assistant mentions a rumor that Hyung Ju-yeon helped Dojun. Her testimony to the police made the assault case disappear quietly. Young Pyo stops and asks why Ju-yeon would help him and what their relationship is. When the assistant says he doesn't know, Young Pyo grabs him by the collar and yells at him to find out immediately. He assumes that if they aren't together, they must have made some kind of deal. The assistant runs off to get the information while Young Pyo angrily grips his golf club. Young Pyo angrily tosses his golf club to the floor. He figures Jiyeon will eventually come to him to finish the job Chol failed to do. He smiles maliciously, noting that she has plenty of money. Later that night, Dojun walks home. He realizes his access to the preserve zone is restricted without a guild, meaning he still needs Jiyeon's help to get back inside. He also knows that selling the boss monster's magic stones himself would trigger an audit. As he approaches his building, Dojun heads up to his apartment. When he opens the front door, he stops. He notices several pairs of men's shoes in the entryway. Inside, his living room is filled with men in suits. A young girl immediately runs up and hugs him. A blonde man sitting on the couch speaks up. He introduces himself as Prosecutor Park Chu-young from the Seoul District Prosecutor's Office. He asks if Dojun knows a man named Hwang Chen-sep. Dojun remains silent and glares at the prosecutor while shielding the girl. The prosecutor states that Dojun is under arrest for aiding Hwang Chen-sep in illegal loan shark operations. Dojun sits in an interrogation room at the prosecution service. Prosecutor Park Chu-yeon walks down the hallway while on the phone with Director Lee. He thanks him for helping his daughter with her studies abroad, and asks him to send his regards to Director Hong. He assures the director that both Hwang Chung-sop and Dojun are being obedient. Once inside the room, Park claims his goal as a prosecutor is to remove trash like them from society. He throws a pile of evidence on the table, stating that the charges alone are worth 10 years in prison. He says they already have everything they need from Hwang Chung-sop's testimony. Dojun remains completely silent, staring intensely at the prosecutor. This irritates Park, who starts shouting, asking if Dojun thinks he's lying. Dojun realizes that Hung Yoo-jin is pulling the strings, and that Wang Chang-sep has fully cooperated with her. Park stands over him, mocking him, and asking if he thinks the law is a joke. Suddenly, Dojun releases a terrifying aura, his eyes glowing with a menacing light. He tells the prosecutor that his life is over. Park is immediately overwhelmed by fear, breaking into a cold sweat and trembling as he realizes he has messed with the wrong person. Jiyeon tells Dojun that the Hero Association is about to launch an investigation. They are specifically monitoring unlicensed hero IDs and the new rift that appeared at the Mapo house. Dojun's first concern is his family, and he asks if they're okay. Junon hesitates for a moment, looking down in silence. She then gets defensive and snaps at him, asking if he thinks she's his secretary or something. She complains about why she should have to check on his family as well. Dojun doesn't argue. He just stands there and stares at her intensely. His silent pressure eventually works, and Dojun looks away, admitting that his family is safe and telling him not to worry. Jiyeon keeps talking as they drive, but Dojun isn't paying any attention. She eventually gets annoyed and asks if he's even listening to her. Dojun ignores her, staring out the window while his mind drifts to a darker solution. He's tired of the constant legal traps and assassination attempts. He wonders to himself what would happen if he just killed Hung Hee-ju. To him, it's a simple way to cut off the source of his problems once and for all. As he considers it, his eyes glow with a cold, lethal intent. Yoo-yeon stops talking, sensing the sudden change in the atmosphere. She stares at him, clearly rattled by the murderous aura he's suddenly giving off. In a dark, fancy office, Kan Young-pyeol's subordinate mentions that Hyun Doo-yeon is a dangerous opponent. This comment immediately makes Young-pyeol furious. He slams his fist down, terrifying his subordinate. Young-pyeol stands up and gets right in the man's face, asking if he really thinks all S-rankers are equal. He arrogantly claims that he could take down someone like Ju-yeon in just 20 minutes. Shaking with fear, the subordinate quickly agrees with him. Young-pyeol then calms down slightly and asks if the Hero Association has gotten back to them yet. The surrounding heroes look on in shock, completely overwhelmed by the creature's speed. The Macassian screeches and charges again, blurring through the dark, rainy streets of Cambridge. A hero with long, light hair tries to track its movements, but the beast is too fast. Another hero with a blade glowing with purple energy lunges forward, attempting to land a strike as the monster jumps. They are struggling to find any opening against the creature's unpredictable movements and sheer power. At the airport, a large crowd of reporters and fans gathers to welcome the heroes back from the UK. The news reports that Hyun Jo-yeon and her team saved the country by discovering that red flower ant extract is a weakness for the Macassian monsters. Reporters call Jo-yeon the MVP and mention that the British royal family might even knight her. Kang Young-pyo is also there, smiling for the cameras and taking credit for the hunt. Dojun stands in the middle of the airport, wearing a hoodie and watching the broadcast on a giant screen. He stares coldly at Kang Young-pyo's face as the man enjoys the spotlight. As they drive, Dojun watches the news and identifies the mysterious new monster in the UK as a Macassian. He explains that monster names aren't random, and that mana stones contain inherent data that can be analyzed to reveal identities and weaknesses. While Earth uses science for this, his ruined world used magic to uncover the same secrets. He tells a stunned Jiyeon that the beast can be easily defeated with red fire ant extract. a harmless substance to humans that acts as a powerful paralyzing poison from a chance. Jian is left questioning how he could possibly know all this. In Long Sutton, England, two guards stand watch over a rift that recently devastated the area. One of them senses something coming out, but the other brushes it off, noting that the raid party only entered 5 hours ago. He tells his partner to stay focused on guard duty, because civilians often try to sneak in for mana stones. Suddenly, the rift begins to crackle with intense energy and electricity. Both guards stop talking and stare in total shock as the portal reacts violently, signaling that something is about to emerge. A tall, scarred man with glowing eyes emerges from the rift in Cambridge. The guards are terrified. One tries to call for backup, while the other is instantly pinned to the pavement by glowing green energy rings. A guard throws throwing knives at the intruder, but they simply bounce off his chest. The man calls them weak and pulls out a phone showing a progress bar at 19%. He is frustrated that after 10 years in this world, he still hasn't reached 20%, despite opening the dimensional widths. He decides the first step is to increase the local mana concentration. As one of the guards asks who he is, the man just smirks. He says he needs to wipe out all the weak bugs first and kills them both. He stands among the bodies, covered in a dark, menacing aura. In Paju, Korea, Seo-jun walks through a quiet field when the earth begins to tremble. Several giant, armored worm monsters burst from the ground surrounding him. Do-jun calmly scans the area, sensing 26 of the creatures within a 100-meter radius. He gathers a massive orb of fire in his hand and slams it into the ground, triggering a series of violent explosions that incinerate every monster instantly. Standing amidst the charred remains, Do-jun simply smiles. Meanwhile, at the Korea Hero Association headquarters, high-ranking officials discuss a report on Do-jun's recent actions. Deputy Director Min Hong-ki describes him as a difficult young man who boldly claimed, "I'm a hero," despite his lack of a formal license. The officials are troubled by the fact that Do-jun's strength could not be measured by a standard hero meter. Vice President Park Sung-chol is outraged by the report, calling Do-jun an impertinent brat for refusing to answer the association's questions, viewing his uncooperative attitude as a direct insult to authority. The meeting at the Korea Hero Association continues, as Deputy Director Min Hong-ki finishes his report. Se Do-jun claims his transformation started after surviving a murder attempt by hero Kang Chol-woo during a gate raid. Since awakening, Do-jin has systematically taken his revenge on Chol-woo and cleared a major rift in Mappo entirely on his own. The records show nothing but overwhelming unchecked strength. One of the senior officials compares Do-jin to a wild horse, difficult to control but undeniably elite. What really shocks the room is Do-jin's audacity. He didn't just ask for a license. He demanded to skip all the standard testing by naming S-rank hero Hyun Juen as his personal guarantor. The idea of the association's top hero backing such an unpredictable rookie leaves Vice President Park Sung-chol and the others speechless. Out in a quiet field in Paju, Do-jun looks over his official hero license. He is now officially recognized as Korea's 8th S-rank hero. To him, the rank is just a convenience that allows him to hunt in high-level rift zones without being harassed by the law. He stands over the mangled remains of the giant armored worms he just finished off, satisfied with the results. Back in the office, the association president laughs at the kid's drive. Kang-ki notes that Do-jun headed straight for the Paju rift the minute his paperwork was finalized. Sung-chol is still in disbelief, calling Do-jun a lunatic for entering a second-degree rift solo without a dild or backup. While the vice president fumes over the recklessness, the president just offers a knowing smirk, clearly interested in what this insane young man will do next. Vice President Sung-chol is eager to make the most of the situation. He suggests that if Do-jun survives, they should immediately reveal his identity and promote him as Korea's 8th S-rank hero to help ease public unrest. Deputy Director Hong-ki isn't so sure, reminding everyone that Do-jun might not want the fame, and that they should ask for his opinion first. The association president listens to both sides, and decides he wants to meet this mysterious young man for himself. Meanwhile, Do-jun is already testing his limits in the Paju Rift Zone. He finds himself surrounded by even more giant worm monsters. Instead of holding back, he charges directly at them. He channels his energy into a massive blade of fire, and swings it with overwhelming force, cutting through the giant creatures like they were nothing. A single strike incinerates the remaining monsters and leaves the ground scorched. As he stands among the charred remains, Do-jun takes a moment to catch his breath. He's satisfied with the kill, but he realizes that using such high-level magic has a major drawback. The mana consumption is way too high for sustained combat. He concludes that if he wants to fight effectively without draining himself, he finally needs to get a real weapon. Do-jun heads to the Gasan Hero Complex to get a proper weapon. He walks into a local gear shop, but the guy at the counter is too busy playing games on his phone to pay him any attention. When Do-jun tells him he wants a weapon made, the guy tells him they are fully booked and to go somewhere else. Do-jun doesn't have time for this. He grabs the guy by his shirt, pulls him over the counter, and demands to see his father. The guy admits he's just the boss's son and quickly calls for his dad. The shop owner, Choi Chokwan, is a master hero weapon craftsman. He comes out and asks who sent him. When Dujan mentions S-rank hero Hyun Juyeon, both Chokwan and his son are shocked. Dujan reaches into his bag and pulls out two massive, jagged fangs. Chokwan recognizes them as the fangs of the giant black salmo. Dujan tells him to turn them into a decent sword and asks for it to be as long as possible. Chokwan warns him that non-metal materials like fangs lose their strength if they are made too long. He recommends making two medium-sized swords instead to keep them durable. Dujan isn't interested in a compromise. He asks the master if he's simply admitting that he isn't skilled enough for the job. He repeats his order to fuse the fangs into one long blade, making it clear that a long reach is exactly what he needs. Dujin has one more request for his new weapon. It needs the highest possible mana absorption rate. This finally pushes the blacksmith's son over the edge. He starts yelling, offended that someone would question his father's world-class skills. He points to a high-quality sword on the wall, claiming it's a level 5 masterpiece. Jian isn't impressed. He calmly picks up the expensive blade and examines it for a second. Without any effort, he snaps the metal in half with his bare hand. Pieces of the sword clatter to the floor. Jian tells them that if they're gonna keep making garbage like this, they might as well quit right now. The scene shifts to a dense jungle. A massive, one-eyed orc wakes up and lets out a deafening roar that echoes through the trees. Jian is already nearby, wading through a stream with his backpack. He mutters that the place is as noisy as ever. As the monster spots him and charges, Jian doesn't even flinch. He ignites his hand with fire and leaps into the air. He delivers a devastating punch right to the orc's jaw, sending a shockwave through the beast's body. The monster screams in pain, but Dujan stays on the offensive. He lands another heavy blow that sends the creature stumbling back. The orc tries to grab a nearby tree to stay on its feet, but it's clear Dujan's power is on a completely different level. He notes that using mana like this without a weapon is exhausting, but he manages to kill the Cyclops anyway. He then fills a large container with the monster's blood. That night, Dujan goes back to the gear shop and drops the container of blood on the counter. The shopkeeper's son has no idea what it is, but Dujan tells him to give it to his father so he can fuse the monster fangs into a sword. He leaves before the guy can even ask a question. Walking through the city, Dujan thinks about his new weapon. He has the fangs and the blood, but he still needs one more thing to make the mana absorption perfect. He says there is only one place on Earth to get it. Dujan is relaxing at a fancy resort when her phone rings. She sees it's Dujan calling and picks up, but her relaxed mood disappears instantly. She looks completely stunned as she repeats his words, unable to believe that he's heading all the way to Brazil. Juyeon's guildmate tries to recruit her for a high-paying mission in Brazil, since the monsters there are violent, but drop top-tier mana stones. She specifically wants Juyeon to bring the rumored new S-rank hero along. Juyeon isn't sure Dujan will agree, but her friend keeps teasing her about how close they seem after their Caucastrian hunt. Juyeon eventually gives in and says she'll go, though she still doesn't know if Dujan would join them. Meanwhile, at the workshop, the master craftsman is in total shock. He can't understand how Dujan knew that Cyclops' blood could be used to bond non-metal materials so perfectly. He agrees to forge the sword to Dujan's exact specifications, promising a length of 180 centimeters. Dujan stays polite, which surprises the master. He requests a two-handed sword weighted at 5 kilograms, but balanced so he can still swing it with one hand. The master warns him it will take at least a month to finish, and will only reach grade 7 mana absorption. Dujan knows that won't be enough to handle his full power. He tells the master to just shape the blade for now, and he'll bring back the necessary materials for the final upgrade himself. The craftsman is left stunned, wondering if Dujan is actually planning to hunt for that material. A few days later, Dujan meets Dujan at a parking lot. She has another gift for him, a brand new, high-end luxury car. Dijun looks at the sleek ride, thanks her, and says he'll use it well as he prepares for his next move. They talk about his recent meeting with the Hero Association. Dijun tells her he refused to let them make his identity public, even if it meant the negotiations failed. Dijun is worried since she's his guarantor, but the association is currently too distracted by a major deployment to Brazil to press the issue. When Jujun mentions she's heading there herself, Dujun suggests they go together. The sudden invitation leaves Jujun flustered and her heart racing. While they prepare for their trip, Kim Yeon-pyo meets with director Hung Hee-ju. He's already taken a 30 billion won advance to kill Dujan, but now he's demanding double that amount. He tells her the job is more complicated now that Jujan is involved. Even though he claims he could beat Jujan in 20 minutes, he knows Dujan is the real problem. Young Pyo drops a massive piece of intel. Dujan is Korea's 8th S-rank hero. Prong is shocked and refuses to believe it, accusing Young Pyo of lying to get more money. Young Pyo tells her he paid for that information, and warns her that if she doesn't take it seriously, Dujan will be the one to kill her. He leaves the office, leaving Hong in a total panic as she realizes she can't handle an S-rank opponent on her own. Director Hong Hee-ju is losing her mind after finding out Seo-jun is an S-rank hero. She tells Kan Young-pyo she'll pay even more money as long as he takes care of him. Young-pyo is just looking to make a profit, and suggests they should be close business partners. He receives a notification on his phone, and tells her the heavens are on her side because a perfect chance to kill June is coming up. The news is full of reports about the biggest overseas dispatch in history. 5 S-rank heroes are being sent to Brazil together. Jueon is on the plane, looking bored. Park Hae-il is there too, looking serious. Jane Son-ho, who carried his group to the top of the business world, is also part of the team. Even with all these famous heroes, people online are mostly curious about the rookie, say Dojun. While the other heroes are tense or focused, Dojun is just sitting in his seat eating a cup of instant noodles. He doesn't seem to care about the cameras or the high-stakes mission at all. As the fight goes on, each hero stays in their own thoughts. Young Pyo is plotting, Juyeon is quiet, and Haeil is focused on the money. The plane eventually reaches its destination, flying over the dense green forests of Brazil where the second monster wave is expected to hit soon. Juyeon grabs her suitcase and catches a taxi outside the hotel in Brazil. Before she can leave, Kan Young-pyo stops her. He asks where she's going so early, since their official schedule hasn't even started yet. Juyeon tells him there's a place she needs to check out first. When he asks for the location, she simply says, Santarem, and closes the door. As the taxi pulls away, Young-pyo is left confused. He remembers that Santarem is the one dangerous rift zone the Brazilian Association specifically told all the visiting heroes to stay away from. Dujin and Juyeon's group arrive at the desolate Santarem rift zone. Juyeon asks why he's in such a hurry, but Dujin just points out that he was the one waiting for them to arrive. When she asks for his real objective, he casually mentions he's here to find a blue croco. One of the other team members tries to demand respect because she's older, but Dojin shuts that down immediately, telling her to just talk normally if she doesn't want things to be awkward. The rest of the guild is on edge, but their teammate warns them not to underestimate the newbie, since he's likely the most legendary rookie they'll ever see. Juyeon asks if he's planning to clear the rift, but Jun clarifies that he's only there for materials and plans to squeeze every bit of value out of the place. Without warning, a massive metallic claw lunges from the darkness. A shield bear barely blocks the strike, the pure impact shaking the ground. The group realizes this monster is on a completely different level than the photos in the reports. Dujin tells the group to move aside. He draws a heavy blade, remembering that the master craftsman Chael-kwan lent it to him since getting a blue croco's heart bare-handed would be difficult. Dujin blurs through the air with incredible speed, easily dodging the monster's attacks. With a series of clean, powerful strikes, he completely butchers the beast, sending blood spraying everywhere. The guild members watch in total shock, realizing the monster was far more dangerous than the report suggested. They are left speechless by his overwhelming strength as Dojan stands over the severed remains. Around the campfire, the guild members can't stop talking about Dojan's performance. They're amazed he took down the blue croco in a single strike, and whisper about the rumors that he did the same to a Cocastrian. To them, he is clearly far beyond a normal hero. Dojan ignores the chatter and starts grilling some strange-looking blue meat over the flames. Jujan asks if he's finished sorting the monster hearts, and he just gestures to the cooling boxes. She then asks what he's cooking, noting it doesn't look like beef. Dujon explains it's blue croco meat and offers her some. Yuan is disgusted at first, wondering why he would bother eating monster meat when they brought enough food, but Dujon tells her she doesn't have to eat if she doesn't want to. He starts eating it casually, looking completely unbothered. Yuan hesitates, but seeing him enjoy it, she eventually picks up a piece with her chopsticks. Her teammate is shocked that she's actually going to try it, but Dujon takes a bite and admits it's actually pretty good. Seeing how much Juan seems to trust Dojin, the short-haired teammate pulls him aside. She's dying to know his dating secret and how he managed to win Jian over. She explains that Juan has never had a boyfriend and isn't the type to fall for guys easily. The mention of dating triggers a memory for Dojin. He thinks back to his previous life during his time at the Imperial Academy before he turned 20. A flashback shows him as a young man standing with a pink-haired noblewoman named Lady Mei So-Grain. Dojin's memories continue to drift back to his past life. In his mid-20s, he was close with Ruin Nileshlian, a lady from a noble family. Finally, there was Veronica, the person who was his final place of rest in that destroyed world. Back in the present, his teammate is yelling at him to pay attention and give up his dating secrets. Dujun just gives a cheesy smile and says that honey doesn't seek out the bee. The line is so cringeworthy that the teammate recoils in horror, while Juyeon starts coughing from the sheer embarrassment of hearing it. Over in Sao Paulo, Kan Young-kyo is trying to make sense of the situation. He can't understand why Juyeon's group moved so quickly to a dangerous area like Santarem before the official operation even began. His assistant mentions that the Brazilian authorities consider the place extremely risky, and there are no known valuable monsters there. As they talk, Director Han calls Yoon-kyo again. She's losing her patience and demands to know why Dujun is still alive. She reveals that her father, the chairman of T Group, saw the news about Dujun being an S-rank and now wants him brought back home. Young-kyo isn't bothered by the pressure. He tells Director Hong that he's found a great business partner in her and promises that Seo-jun will never return from Brazil. After hanging up, he looks at a map and circles Santarem. He realizes that by walking into such a remote, lawless area, Dojun has actually made the assassination much easier. He then gives the order to contact Takashi's side to help coordinate the hit. As the group moves deeper into the Santarem rift zone, the landscape turns into a dense jungle. Jojun warns Dojun that dangerous monsters live here, specifically mentioning a creature called a lynx. Jojun seems to recognize the name and continues walking. Jojun catches up and offers him a pair of earplugs. She explains that the lynx has a special cry that can paralyze a human's mind if they hear it. Jojun casually refuses the offer, saying he doesn't need them, despite Jojun's insistence that even the Brazilian Hero Association treats these monsters with extreme caution. Dojun just smiles and walks off into the trees alone. Night falls over the jungle, and a strange high-pitched cackling sound begins to echo through the air. The team stays together, on high alert. High up on a tree branch, silhouetted against the bright full moon, the lynx finally appears. It's a large, wolf-like creature with glowing red eyes. The monster lets out a piercing, sonic howl that vibrates through the entire area. The guild members immediately panic, shouting for everyone to cover their ears to avoid the mental paralysis. While the others struggle with the sound, Dojin stands perfectly still and unfazed, staring directly up at the monster. The lynx monster continues its piercing howl, pinning the guild members down. Juyeon is doubled over, desperately trying to block out the sound that's paralyzing her mind. She looks over at Dojin, and is stunned to see him standing perfectly calm without even covering his ears. While the others are incapacitated, Dojin casually leans down and picks up a small rock. He channels intense fire into his fist, turning the simple stone into a glowing, lethal projectile. With a flick of his wrist, he launches a rock with such speed and power that it creates a streak of fire through the night air. The stone hits the lynx dead on, instantly cutting off its psychic scream. Silence finally returns to the jungle. Jian and her teammate catch their breath, shocked that the monster's cries stopped so suddenly. They look at Gojan, unable to comprehend the level of skill required to pull off such a feat under that kind of pressure. However, the relief is short-lived. From the dark canopy above, dozens of glowing red eyes emerge. A whole pack of lynx monsters has surrounded them, far more than the reports ever mentioned. The lynx that Dojin hit stands back up, its glowing eyes pulsing with a malicious light. It doesn't howl this time. Instead, it uses a more direct form of mental interference. Joyeon feels a sudden sharp pressure behind her eyes. She realizes too late that they've walked into a massive trap. As she stares into the darkness, her vision begins to distort, and a terrifying reflection of the monster's glowing, multifaceted eyes starts to manifest within her own mind, signaling the start of a deep mental siege. The fire expands from the tip of Dojin's blade, growing into a massive, blinding sphere of heat. The lynx monsters have no time to react. The nearest one is caught directly in the path of the expanding flame. Its glowing eye reflects the fire just before it is completely consumed. The blast continues to surge to the jungle, incinerating everything in its radius. A massive roar of fire echoes through the trees as the technique reaches its full peak, wiping out the entire pack in a single, overwhelming explosion. The massive inferno finally clears, leaving behind a giant blackened crater in the middle of the jungle. Juyeon and her team are speechless, unable to process the sheer power they just witnessed. Most of the lynx pack was incinerated instantly, but one managed to survive the blast, though it's barely clinging to life. Jujeon isn't impressed. He walks up to the broken monster and calls it pathetic. As he looks into its dying eyes, he realizes he's found exactly what he needs. He remembers the blacksmith's words about needing special materials to handle his full power. Dojin reaches down and casually plucks the glowing eyes from the monster's skull, noting that he'll have a good use for them. With the final components secured, he's one step closer to finishing his ultimate weapon. Meanwhile, the conspirators remain unaware that their target has already reached a level of power that makes their schemes look like child's play. The group continues walking through the jungle, but the guild members can't help but whisper behind Dojan's back. His performance has left them in awe, and they start debating just how high his level really is. One wonders if he's stronger than Shabriel Fons, while another suggests he might be on the level of Kane Lester, the world's strongest hero. This idea is quickly dismissed as going too far, but it's clear no one knows his true limit. Their conversation is cut short when a pack of undead monsters rises from the dark waters nearby. The creatures look hollow and mindless, driven only by a primal instinct to attack. They lunge at the group, but Dojan doesn't even bother drawing his sword. He meets the charge head-on with brutal efficiency. Another lurches forward, only to be met with a powerful high kick that severs its head. Gojan blurs between the monsters, delivering a flurry of punches and kicks that leave shattered bodies in his wake. He finishes the last one by crushing its skull under his boot, leaving the guild members stunned by his sheer physical dominance. As the group moves on, Juyeon watches Dojan closely. She finally speaks up and asks where he learned that kind of swordsmanship. She's especially curious about the fire technique he used earlier, describing it as the red dot thing that sent sparks everywhere. Dojan remains quiet as they continue their trek deeper into the dangerous rift zone. Dojan remains silent for a while when Juyeon asks about his fire technique. He eventually tells her that she wouldn't need it in such a peaceful world, and asks when she would even use it. Juyeon gets frustrated, snapping that there's a limit to being ignored, and that as an S-rank hero, she might need it at least once before she dies. She realizes Dojan just doesn't want to teach her, and feels slighted. The group decides to leave the rift, having cleared the area without any casualties, thanks to Dojan's overwhelming power. As they head toward the exit, they are suddenly interrupted by a group of men speaking Japanese. The leader is revealed to be Ryoma Takashi, an ex-Yakuza, an S-rank hero who guildmasters Taigoku. Takashi tells Juyeon he was looking forward to having fun with her, and threatens to kill Dojan if he doesn't get lost immediately. Jujeon calmly mentions to Juyeon that her companion companions don't seem to like her very much. Juyeon is shocked that he understands Japanese, but Doojeon just says he knows enough because his past self studied it. Takashi is annoyed, wondering what Doojeon is even saying. His subordinates step forward and shout at Doojeon, demanding that he bow his head and apologize for insulting their master. Doojeon simply says he isn't interested and tells the entire group to get lost. The Taigoku Guild is ranked among the top 5 in Japan, and their leader, Ryoma Takashi, is an ex-Yukaza known for a thuggish temper. Jung In-ju tries to step in and de-escalate the situation by introducing her guild and suggesting they settle things peacefully. Takashi isn't interested. He tells her to get lost and calls her a bitch, telling her she'll get what's coming to her after he's finished. He then makes the mistake of grabbing Juyeon by the shoulder. Doojeon sees this as a planned provocation and decides to accept the challenge. He tells Juyeon to step aside and immediately delivers a devastating strike to Takashi's face. The force sends the S-rank hero spinning through the air until he crashes violently into a tree. Doojeon's teammates are terrified, but he remains perfectly calm. He tells the Japanese guild members to back off, noting that since Takashi threw the first punch, this is officially self-defense. He dismisses the subordinates as small fries and demands a one-on-one fight. Takashi is humiliated and furious. He stands up, his eyes glowing with a vengeful red light. He strips off his jacket and shirt, revealing a massive scarred physique as he channels his power for a serious battle. Juyeon watches Doojeon from behind. She doesn't tell him to stop or hold back. Instead, she just looks at him and asks him to just half-kill the guy. Doojeon doesn't respond with words, but his aura darkens as he prepares to finish the fight. Doojeon continues the fight by leaping into the air and slamming a knee into Tashi's face. The force of the hit is so strong it cracks the ground and sends the S-rank hero flying backward. Tashi's subordinates are in shock, realizing they were wrong about Doojeon's power level. Tashi lies on the ground, bleeding and shaking with a terrifying realization that he's about to die. Doojeon walks up and asks if someone sent him to pick this fight. Tashi is too scared to even move. Doojeon says he can already guess who the client was. He grabs Tashi by the hair as the man begs to be saved. Doojeon simply says no and delivers a powerful punch that sends him tumbling again. Doojeon doesn't stop and keeps hitting him while he's down. In-ju tells Doojeon that the fight is too one-sided and that Tashi is going to die. Doojeon finally steps in and yells at Doojeon to stop before he actually kills him. Doojeon doesn't stop. He tells Doojeon he'll take responsibility for what happens next, but she tells him not to do things he'll regret. She tries to pull him away, but Doojeon argues that scum like Takashi are better off dead. Doojeon manages to stop him, telling him he shouldn't get dragged down because of trash like that. She notes that the Japanese team has definitely learned their lesson. In-ju takes charge and demands a proper apology from the rest of the Taigoku Guild. She makes them get on their knees, but Doojeon isn't satisfied with just that. He orders them to bow their heads to the ground. He mocks their Yakuza background, asking if they usually cut off a finger when they mess up. Terrified, the subordinates beg for forgiveness. Doojeon tells them he'll let it slide only if they admit they are shit. Completely humiliated, they repeat the words as their leader lies broken and bleeding nearby. Later in Sao Paulo, the president of the Brazil Hero Association reads the report of the incident with wide eyes. He finds it impossible to believe that an S-rank hero like Takashi was beaten so badly he might never recover, especially by a single opponent. He admits that because Takashi was the only one injured, he can't ignore the facts, but the situation is still hard to accept. The Brazil Association had high hopes that the Korean and Japanese teams would work together to clear the dangerous Santoram rift. Now that the partnership has collapsed, the president decides that his association has no further part to play in this dispute. He informs Juyeon and In-ju that the entire matter will be handed over to the Korean and Japanese Hero Associations. They will have to wait for the final verdict from their own headquarters. Juyeon and In-ju accept the decision in silence. The president of the Brazil Hero Association reviews the report on the Santoram Rift incident. He notices that Doojeon's name is mentioned several times and asks why he didn't attend the meeting. Juyeon hesitates before explaining that he went off to finish things. At a nearby hospital, Ryoma Takashi is lying in bed, covered head to toe in bandages. He's in severe pain and can only moan. Suddenly, Doojeon appears at his bedside carrying a bouquet of flowers. He tells Takashi to stay still and claims he's there for an official visit. Doojeon pulls out a glowing mechanical eye and uses its power to put Takashi into a trance. He commands the broken man to tell him truth about the provocation. Takashi immediately starts weeping and confessing. He admits that he is trash, and that he was the one who caused trouble for the Korean guild members. Having gotten what he wanted, Doojeon walks out of the room. He doesn't look back as Takashi lies there completely broken, mindlessly repeating that the Yakuza are shit over and over again. Doojeon leaves the hospital with a cold, determined expression. Rumors of how Doojeon beat Takashi to a pulp spread globally, making him the star of the pre-battle party. Every hero in attendance is whispering about his overwhelming strength, yet Doojeon remains humble and doesn't brag at all. His teammate remarks to Juyeon that compared to him, They both seem completely ordinary. Juyeon doesn't even hear her, her face stiffening as she watches someone approach Dojun. Gloria Tyler, a famous S-Rank hero from America, who was voted the world's most beautiful hero, walks right up to him. She stands close and smiles, clearly interested in the man everyone is talking about. Yuyeon's teammate gets fired up, telling Yuyeon that seeing a world-class beauty move in is enough to sour anyone's mood. She tries to push a flustered Yuyeon to go over and intervene, but Jiyeon just stammers in confusion. Meanwhile, Dojun looks as stoic and bored as ever, seemingly unaffected by Gloria's presence. Gloria Tyler finishes her conversation with Dojun, calling him Castle as she walks away. Yuyeon is confused and asks who Castle is. Dojun tells her it's just an English name he used in the past, before he became Dojun. Yuan finds this suspicious, because there was no record of that name when they checked his history, and she's annoyed that he kept it a secret from her. Across the room, Kang Young-pyo watches them while sipping a drink. He's disgusted that Takashi was beaten so easily, and decides that he will have to step in himself to finish the job. Dojen senses him watching, and warns Jojen to be careful, noting that their enemies won't always play fair. Jojen tries to explain that Takashi has some dangerous and close allies, but Dojen cuts her off. He tells her to forget about it, saying that people who are cowardly and weak but act tough like Takashi aren't a problem for him at all. Young Pyo overhears the comment and trembles with rage. He glares at Dojen's back, swearing to himself that he will kill him with his own hands. The group stands before the dark and murky entrance of a Santarem rift zone. Some of the team members aren't worried at all, thinking they're safe since they have two S-rank heroes with them. They hurry inside, eager to close the rift. As they enter, Dojen stops and asks the others if they can feel what's happening. Juyeon and the others don't sense anything out of the ordinary at first. Dojen's expression turns serious. He realizes the concentration of mana in the air is rapidly rising. Nearby, the scarred man from the UK rift watches them from the shadows. He checks a device showing his progress has reached 23%. He remarks that it won't be long before he hits 30% and calls the heroes filthy bugs. He decides it would be easier if they all just died from the intense mana pressure he's generating. The sudden shift in energy is too much for the lower ranked heroes. They collapse to their knees, gasping for air and feeling like their bodies have turned to lead. They struggle to breathe under the suffocating pressure. Jiyeon looks around and notes that the quality of this mana is unlike anything he's felt before. It's even denser than what he encountered in the Pardishua forest. Jiyeon watches him, noticing that for the first time, even the stoic Dojun looks tense. She realizes that whatever is waiting for them in the dark is far more dangerous than any monster. Inju tells everyone to stay calm, explaining that this is likely a trait of the rift. She instructs Juyeon and Dojun to focus on protecting the group while they work to close the dungeon. Dojun agrees, and the team moves forward cautiously. While this is happening, another joint team of international heroes is fighting a different battle near Manhouse. They are being slaughtered by a swarm of flying monsters called killer bees. Park Hae-yeol is on the front lines and can't believe what he's seen. Usually these bees are weak enough for even C-rank heroes to handle, but here they are easily killing A-rank heroes. Hae-yeol tries to strike back, but just like Dojun's group, he feels an intense weight holding him down. His body is too heavy to move effectively, making it impossible for him to shred the monsters like he normally would. He realizes that in this specific area, the power balance has shifted completely. He stands surrounded by the buzzing swarm, struggling just to stay on his feet. The situation inside the Santarem rift is turning bad. Black orcs are appearing, and they are much stronger than the guild members expected. One hero tries to land a hit, but it does nothing. Inju wonders why these orcs are suddenly so powerful, as more of them surround the group. The guild members are being overwhelmed. One member attempts a punch that doesn't even make the monster flinch. Enju raises a massive axe to strike, but Juyeon rushes in and pulls her teammate out of the way just in time. She tells everyone to stop rushing in recklessly. A giant black orc boss then moves toward them. Juyeon jumps into the air to engage it. She dodges a heavy swing and lands a kick directly on the boss's head. The monster isn't down yet and retaliates with a punch that sends Juyeon flying back across the field. She gets back on her feet as the boss prepares to kill a hero on the ground. Juyeon charges forward and strikes the boss directly in the head. The impact is enough to finally take the monster down. The guild members are amazed, remembering that despite how strong Dojun is, this is what an actual S-rank hero is capable of. Another regular orc lunges at Dojun from behind, but he doesn't even draw a weapon. He simply steps aside and delivers a heavy punch that kills it instantly. Inju watches the aftermath, feeling unsettled. She notes that they are facing this level of difficulty right at the entrance, and even with two S-ranks, closing this rift won't be easy. Dojun is standing over the dead orc, staring intently at its face. Yujeon walks up and asks what he's looking at. He points out a faint black ripple coming off the corpse. He explains that it's dark mana, and it's the reason why these monsters have become so much stronger than normal. Yujeon is surprised she can't see it unless she really focuses. Dojun wonders why dark mana is appearing in this world, leaving the rest of the group feeling uneasy, as they realize the threat is more complicated than they thought. The group pushes further into the rift and gets attacked by giant, slimy monsters called swamp ghouls. The regular heroes struggle to fight them. The ghouls easily block their strikes and hit back hard enough to tear right through a hero's heavy combat shield. The short-haired girl steps in, using her speed to slice one of the ghouls apart. She notes that even these basic monsters are unusually strong. She starts to wonder if this specific rift is just special, or if this sudden spike in difficulty is happening in rift zones all over the world. Over at the Manaus Rift in Brazil, the situation is a complete disaster. The entire joint team of heroes has been wiped out. Even the two S-rank heroes from Brazil and France were killed by the killer bees. Back in Santarém, the purple-haired woman connects the dots. She realizes that the dark mana Dojun pointed out earlier must be the black aura she now sees surrounding the swamp ghouls. Over and over again, every suspect of the man who pointed out earlier has been fallen on the west from the swamp ghouls. Gojong casually slices a ghoul to pieces and confirms her theory. He explains that the dark mana acts like highly concentrated energy pouring directly into the monsters' bodies, buffing their stats. She's a bit confused and asks if he means mana, like the stuff used to cast spells in video games. Gojon sighs at her lack of knowledge. He calmly explains that the biggest difference between awakened heroes and ordinary people is the simple fact that heroes have mana. Right as he finishes explaining, a massive ghoul emerges and opens its giant, toothy maw directly behind him. The giant ghoul snaps its jaws shut, but Dojin easily dodges by leaping high into the air. Mid-air, he thinks about how Earth's lack of mana made it peaceful, but that peace is about to end. He drops back down and obliterates the massive monster with a single explosive punch. The purple-haired woman finally understands, comparing the dark mana to athletes using performance-enhancing drugs. Gojin agrees. When the short-haired girl asks how he knows all this, he just says it's weirder that they don't. The team moves out of the swamp area, slowing down as they follow Dojin's warning about the Belkara spawn zone. Dojin suddenly tells everyone to stop. They look up and spot massive webbed cocoons hanging from the trees, containing a black orc and a killer bee. The other heroes immediately go on high alert, scanning the area for the spider-like Belkara. Dojin stops them and points back at the webs, stating the cocoons are the actual threat. He suddenly ignites his hand with magic and blasts the webs with a massive wave of fire. As the cocoons burn, he explains that Belkara exposed to dark mana used them as puppets. If they hadn't destroyed the trap first, the team would have been surrounded and killed instantly. Now that the puppets are gone, Dojun notes that they just need to find and kill the Belkara. After Dojun burns the cocoons, the short-haired girl stares at him, thinking his level of strength is basically cheating. The purple-haired woman grabs his shoulder and jokingly asks if he is living a second life since he knows so much. Dojun smirks, thinking about his past, and casually tells her that is close enough. Dojun asks how far they are from the fissure's core. The short-haired girl says they are about halfway and states they will clear the rift by the end of the day. The purple-haired woman quickly points out that the rest of the guild is completely exhausted from fighting in the swamp and can't keep going. Seeing the tired heroes, Dojun tells them all to stay back and rest while he goes to deal with the Belkara himself. Before they can argue, he dashes deep into the forest at high speed. The short-haired girl is shocked that he still has so much energy left. Dojun runs through the dark trees until he spots the giant spider monster hiding in a massive web. The Belkara screeches and shoots thick webs at him. Dojun easily dodges the attacks, leaps into the air, and slices the giant spider in half with his sword. As the monster crashes to the ground, Dojun lands and looks at his hands. He notices that he isn't tired at all. He realizes his stamina is full because he absorbed the ambient dark mana in the area using his mana heart technique. With the area cleared, he walks back to where the rest of the team is waiting. The girls are stunned that Dojun took down the Belkara completely on his own in such a short time. He walks back to them looking completely unfazed, and suggests they take a break since he can't sense any more monsters in the immediate area. They set up a campfire to rest. Dojun calmly roasts a large chunk of meat on a stick. One of the exhausted heroes walks up and asks if she can try some. He happily hands it over. Seeing this, another hero wonders if eating that specific meat is the secret to Dojun's crazy strength, so he decides to try some too. Dojun knows it's just regular meat, but since they are so desperate to get stronger, he secretly infuses the food with a little bit of his mana as a small gift. As soon as they take a bite, the heroes feel a massive surge of energy rushing through their bodies. Later, they gather around a map. The short-haired girl points out that they are only halfway to the fissure's core. Since their bags are already completely full of loot, and everyone is exhausted, she suggests they head back for the day and try again tomorrow. The purple-haired woman agrees with the plan, admitting she is tired and the monsters are just too strong with the dark mana buff. Dojun silently considers the situation. His original plan was to clear the rift as slowly as possible, so they could farm exclusive Brazilian materials, like the blue Croco's heart. However, the sudden appearance of dark mana is a dangerous variable he doesn't want to risk leaving unchecked. He pulls out a bag and dumps a massive pile of valuable red cores onto the ground. He tells the girls to take the loot and guide the rest of the team back to the hotel. While they stare at the pile of cores in shock, Dojun casually turns around and announces that he is going to head deeper inside, close the gate by himself, and catch up with them later. Dojun pushes deeper into the rift and encounters a massive dark slime monster. Without hesitating, he dashes forward and slices it clean in half with a single swing. He reaches into the puddle of black sludge and pulls out a glowing red core. As the rest of the team heads back toward the entrance, the short-haired girl asks if Dojun will really be okay on his own. The purple-haired woman points out that he dashed off like a bullet and still has a ton of energy left. The short-haired girl notices her friend looks gloomy and asks if she's worried. She denies it, admitting that it is just embarrassing to call herself an S-rank when there is such a massive gap in their power. She doubts there is a single S-rank in the world who can actually compare to him. Back inside the rift, Dujun is tearing through the monsters. He leaps into the air, slices a black orc's arm off, and cleanly decapitates it before it can react. Another massive orc swings a giant axe down at him. Dujun effortlessly deflects the heavy blow with his sword. He gathers fire magic in his hand and blasts the orc point-blank with a massive fireball, easily taking it down. Standing among the dead monsters, Dujun collects another red core. Meanwhile, the exhausted team finally steps out of the dark rift and back into the daylight, struggling under the weight of their fully packed badge of loot. Deep inside the rift, Dujun continues his solo hunt, casually slicing through another giant monster with a completely calm and unfazed expression. Dujun rips out the blue Croco's heart and safely seals it inside a glass jar. He continues hunting through the area, easily crushing monsters and gathering a massive pile of red cores. With his bag packed full of loot, he walks deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, at the Brazil Hero Association headquarters, an alarm suddenly goes off in the operations room. The staff watch the monitor in shock as the Santarem rift signal completely disappears from the map. They immediately start cheering, realizing the gate has been successfully closed. A manager asks which team was assigned to that area, and is told it was the Korean Silk Flower Guild. This completely confuses him because the guild had just contacted them 10 minutes earlier to report they had exited the rift and were heading back. He wonders who actually closed the gate. 10 minutes earlier, deep inside the rift, Dujin confronts a massive twin-head ogre. He notes that the creature was rapidly evolved by the dark mana. Just behind the monster, he spots the swirling purple core of the fisher. Deciding to finish things quickly, Dujin stomps the ground and launches himself forward. As the giant ogre roars and swings its massive fist down at him, Dujin draws his sword, infuses it with bright glowing energy, and prepares to strike, using his Vandeon sword-style second form. The golden slash hits the ogre right in the chest. The monster screams in pain, but our guy notices that one strike isn't going to be enough to finish it off. He grips his sword and dashes forward again, as the ogre roars. This time, he unleashes a rapid combo of golden sword slashes, hitting the monster from multiple angles and trapping it in a grid of attacks. While the ogre is stunned from the combo, he spots his opponent. He goes straight for the purple core on its ankle and brings his sword down for a heavy final strike. The golden blade smashes into the core, completely shattering it. With its core broken, the giant ogre turns into dust and disappears, and our boy simply sheathes his sword, ending the fight. Our guy lands safely a short distance away. Right after the attack, a swirling dark purple pearl suddenly appears behind him. He turns around to look at the strange rift. Staring into the energy triggers sudden visions in his mind. He thinks to himself that he has no idea if what he's seeing are his actual past memories or just an illusion. The vision shows a dark armored figure standing over a ruined area while a crowd of people runs away in panic. Realizing he can't make any clear guesses right now, he decides to stop overthinking it. "Dear wait, how do you say it?" He clenches his free hand, steps directly in front of the swirling purple portal, and swings his glowing sword at it. With one clean horizontal slash, he destroys the dark energy, forcing the rift to close completely. As the purple portal shatters into pieces, the dark energy completely fades away. The scene then shifts to a modern office, where a subordinate hands a written report to his boss. The boss asks for an update on the Santarem rift, assuming the Korean team they dispatched earlier was the one who cleared it, but the subordinate quickly corrects him. He points to the document and reveals the actual name of the guild that closed the rift. Reading the paper, the boss's eyes wide open in shock. Stunned by the information, he suddenly slams both hands on his desk and orders the subordinate to put everything on hold right away. The scene then cuts to a bright, medieval-style town known as the Elven Territory Guardian Village, accompanied by two small pets. Back at the office, the boss rubs his face in frustration. His purple-haired subordinate realizes who he's talking about and asks if he really means that specific guy. The boss confirms it as he looks down at a profile on his phone. He immediately orders her to find out everything about this person. The subordinate hesitates, pointing out that they don't have any clues to go on. But the boss isn't taking no for an answer. He holds up his phone, showing her that people are already talking about him all over the internet. He firmly tells her to track him down before anyone else gets to him first. Understanding the assignment, the woman gets up and leaves the office. As she walks down the hallway, she pulls out her phone and makes a call. On the other end, a rugged, blonde-haired man answers. She addresses him as Guildmaster and asks if he has heard the news about what happened at the Santarem Rift. The Guildmaster confirms he heard the news and reveals that they've just found an unowned territory. He strictly orders the woman to bring the guy to him right away. Meanwhile, back at the Elven Village, our guy is wading deeper into the water. He thinks to himself that normally clearing an underwater rift like this would require a full party of highly skilled divers. But since he's flying solo, he relies on a special item called Siren's Tears. Taking a deep breath, he dives straight in. He swims far down into the depths and spots a massive dark vortex spinning below him. Huge creepy-looking monster fish swim past, but he completely ignores them and keeps descending into the abyss. Reaching the bottom, he lands firmly on his feet and immediately draws his sword. Looming right in front of him is a giant, jagged dark crystal structure. Looking at it, he confirms that he's finally found the core of the rift. He channels his energy, forming a bright white aura around his body, and swings his sword down directly onto the crystal. The heavy strike shatters the core into pieces, sending a blast of light through the water. As soon as the core breaks, the creepy monster fish swimming nearby immediately scatter in all directions, just as he expected. But a moment later, a massive shadow looms over him in the dark water. He looks up and spots a gigantic creature lurking behind the underwater rocks. A huge, glowing purple and yellow eye opens up in the darkness, staring right at him, and he instantly realizes this monster is a completely different threat. Recognizing the giant eye, Dojun calls the monster Acromos. He smiles, noting that he didn't expect to run into it down here. He remembers that in his previous world, all the legendary heroes shared one thing in common. They hunted Acromos back when they were just nobody. He decides he can't miss out on such a golden opportunity. Suddenly, Acromos opens a massive starry portal. The beast has no natural enemies because no matter what it faces, it creates a subspace to swallow its targets whole. A strong current starts pulling Dojun in. Instead of resisting, he simply braces himself and purposefully dives straight into the monster's void. Getting pulled in, Dojun notes that he could easily just kill the monster outright, but doing so means he wouldn't be able to obtain its subspace. To claim the subspace entirely for himself, he needs to suppress the beast purely with his own mana. He releases a massive burst of energy that instantly shreds the surrounding fish monsters down to their bone. However, the portal's dark energy proves to be incredibly intense, and Dujun's golden aura starts getting overpowered, pushing him back. Realizing he needs more power to keep pouring out his mana, he tries to absorb the surrounding dark mana to match the output. But as he reaches out to take it in, a sharp force suddenly cuts across his cheek. Bleeding slightly, he realizes that his current body just isn't strong enough to handle this method right now. Deciding to settle things right there, Dojun pushes forward with his hand, unleashing a massive wave of golden energy that erupts all the way to the surface. Down below, he forcefully reaches out and grabs a clump of the dark starry energy right out of the water, successfully securing Acromos' subspace for himself. Following a massive water explosion on the surface, the scene shifts to a peaceful grassy field. Dojun is lying unconscious on the ground, while a group of birds casually peck at his head. He suddenly wakes up with a start, spitting out water and scaring the birds away. Glancing at his gear resting nearby, he realizes he actually lost consciousness for a bit and sits up to take a look at his new surroundings. Dojun checks his hand and notices that his mana power has actually increased compared to before. He summons the dark starry subspace again and calls it his greatest gain yet. Knowing the whole ordeal was definitely worth it, he grabs his sword and stretches his arms with a loud yell. Since there is nothing left to explore in the area, he decides to close the rift and head back to his lodge. Meanwhile, at the Korea Hero Association, Chairman Na Tae-hong is having a meeting with a subordinate. The man reports that although it isn't an official announcement yet, the rumors about several heroes dying in the rifts are true. The chairman sighs, upset that they lost talents they couldn't afford to lose. The subordinate points out that these deaths only happen in certain specific rift zones. Hearing this, the chairman praises Dojun for managing to close those exact places, stating the young hero is even more incredible than he expected. The subordinate notes that since a previous incident involving someone named Ryoma Takashi is already a hot topic, Dojun's actions will make an even bigger impact in the world. The chairman is just pleased that one of their own Korean heroes is getting the focus for one. Moving on, the subordinate gives an update on the domestic rifts. He reports that they haven't found any strange anomalies like the ones in Brazil, guessing it might just be a sudden localized event. Regardless of the theory, the chairman firmly orders him not to slack off on monitoring their areas for even a second. The subordinate admits he's actually worried about Dojun, knowing that Brazil's stingy chairman Daniel Lopez will definitely try to squeeze every bit of use out of him. Chairman Na just laughs out loud, predicting that Lopez will be the one getting stripped down to his underwear, since Dojun is no ordinary guy to be pushed around. Sure enough, over in Brazil, a sweating Lopez yells that Dojun's demands are way too high. Dojun, sitting calmly with his two companions, simply replies that if it's too much, they have nothing left to discuss. He stands up to leave, making Lopez immediately panic. The chairman tries to guilt trip him, questioning his duty as an S-rank hero to protect Brazil's safety. Dojun immediately shuts him down. He points out that he already closed 2 rifts entirely on his own, and tells Lopez to go preach about duty to the Brazilian heroes who haven't done theirs yet. He makes it clear that Brazil's safety isn't his problem, bluntly asking if Lopez would send his own heroes to help if Korea was in the same mess. Lopez is left completely speechless. Just then, another official rushes in with an urgent report. He tells the chairman that the situation is serious because all rift zones within a 500-kilometer radius of Santarém are now inaccessible, and they can't do anything about the anomaly area anymore. Lopez panics, realizing that if this happens anywhere else, Brazil is completely finished. Watching him stress out, The purple-haired woman calmly speaks up, telling the chairman that in this case, the answer to his problem is actually simple, advising Chairman Lopez to just accept the demands since the price is nothing compared to the entire country's safety. Completely defeated, Lopez slumps in his chair and agrees to pay $50 million for every rift zone Doojeon closes from now on. Doojeon smiles, telling him he should have just done that from the start. But before they finish, Doojeon holds up 2 fingers and tells the chairman to deposit $100 million first, to cover the 2 rifts he already took care of. Watching him hustle the chairman, the woman smiles to her. She knows that if this conversation went public, everyone would call Doojeon money hungry. However, she also knows the proud Brazilian association would never let this leak, and even if they did, Doojeon wouldn't care anyway. For a brief moment, Doojeon closes his eyes and connects with his inner mind. Speaking to the original owner of his body, he tells him that with his current power and wealth, he has finally secured the perfectly safe house the original Doojeon always wanted. He states that he kept his promise and asks if he's satisfied now. Ultimately, even though the Brazilian government hated Doojeon's demands, they had 0 options left and accepted the deal. To protect their own pride, they made him sign a non-disclosure agreement, which ironically ensured Doojeon's public image remained spotless. While Doojeon secures his bag, the rest of the world deals with the grim aftermath of the mutated rift, with surviving heroes recovering in hospitals and the fallen ones being sent home in rows of coffins. As they finish up breakfast at the hotel, one of the guild members asks Doojeon if he's coming with them for the next rift. Doojeon seems distracted, so she mentions that he doesn't look very interested. Doojeon finally speaks up, saying he was just weighing his options to see which plan benefits him the most. He lays out a high-efficiency strategy. While he's busy closing one rift solo, the guild will move ahead to the entrance of the next one. Once he's done, he'll meet them there so they can close that second rift together. Then, while the guild stays behind to handle the final cleanup of that shared rift, he'll head off to solo a third one. This plan would allow him to knock out 3 rifts in a single day. To sweeten the deal, he offers to share a portion of his massive reward for the rifts they close as a team. The guild members are instantly fired up by the idea of making that much money. Before they head out, Doojeon leans in and whispers something privately to Hyun Jo-yeon. He tells her not to overdo it and to focus strictly on protecting her guild members until he arrives, reminding her that as an S rank, she can handle that much. The sudden personal attention catches her off guard, making her blush intensely. The other guild members notice her bright red face and start whispering among themselves, jokingly wondering if the two are actually dating. The scene then shifts to a dense forest where Doojeon is walking alone through the high grass. Suddenly, his expression sharpens as he hears a series of heavy rhythmic thuds echoing through the trees. He realizes something massive is nearby and prepares himself for whatever is about to emerge. A massive cyclops subspecies towers over Doojeon, letting out a loud roar that shakes the forest. Our guy isn't intimidated at all and just thinks about how it's time to make some more spending money from his new deal with the chairman. He instantly dashes forward and lands a heavy blow right on the monster's face, catching it completely off guard. The impact is so strong that it sends the giant beast flying back, crashing through the trees. Even after taking a hit like that, the cyclops manages to get back on its feet, growling through the blood in its mouth. Doojeon realizes this one is a tough, tanky type that can take a lot of punishment. Instead of just hitting it again, he decides it's the perfect time to test out a brand new technique and flashes a confident smile as he prepares his next move. The cyclops lunges forward with a massive punch, but Doojeon doesn't even move. He simply holds out his hand and summons Akrimo's subspace portal right in front of the monster's fist. The cyclops' arm disappears into the void, and a split second later, another portal opens directly above the monster's head. Its own massive arm comes flying out of the sky, crushing its own skull with a single devastating impact. Doojeon watches the beast fall, concluding that while the move is flashy, it's not very efficient because it burns through way too much mana. Immediately after the monster goes down, a notification confirms that the Maru Southern Rift Zone has been officially closed. Back at the Brazilian Association headquarters, the atmosphere is pure chaos. Chairman Lopez sits in shock as his staff reports that the rift was cleared in only 8 hours. Realizing he has to keep his end of the bargain, he gloomily orders his assistant to deposit the money. As the $50 million transfer goes through, the assistant points out the scary reality. If Doojeon keeps closing rifts this fast, the government is going to burn through billions of dollars in just a matter of days. Chairman Lopez realizes he can't just stop paying Doojeon because if he does, the guy will probably just quit and leave Brazil to rot. Instead, he comes up with a scheme to save money. He decides to form a special team of local and international A-rank and S-rank heroes to compete against Doojeon. His plan is to offer this team a $10 million reward per rift, way cheaper than Doojeon's fee, and have them race to close rift before our guy can get to them. Lopez turns this into a full-blown contest. CO Doojeon versus the International Hero Alliance. He reaches out to Ryama Takashi, an S-rank hero who was already waiting for a call. Ryama thinks the $10 million payout is a bit low for a large team, but figures the hunts will be easier with so much backup. However, things get confusing for Ryama when he checks the official team list. He was worried about having to work with Doojeon, but he finds out that Doojeon, Hyun Jo-yeon, and their entire group aren't even listed. He's left wondering what kind of game the chairman is playing. Meanwhile, Doojeon is already back in the field with his team. He checks his phone and sees that the $50 million payment for his last solo rift just hit his account. Yo-yeon asks if the association is paying up like they promised, and Doojeon simply confirms that everything seems to be going according to plan. Doojeon realizes that the association isn't stupid and is gathering other heroes heroes just to lower the cost of hiring him. He doesn't actually care about the money anymore though, saying he has something much more important to focus on now. Just like the association wanted, a fierce competition starts between Dojun and the new Hero Alliance team, and rifts start closing at a crazy speed. At 3 p.m., Dojun and the Silkflower Guild clear their first rift. A couple of hours later, the Hero Alliance team manages to close another one, but they pay a price with several A-rank and S-rank heroes getting injured. By late that night, Dojun finishes off yet another rift entirely by himself. Several days pass in this constant race. The monitoring agents back at headquarters are completely exhausted, barely staying awake with massive eye bags. They note that while the high-priority dark mana rifts are being closed quickly, the normal rifts are being neglected, keeping everyone on constant standby. Suddenly, a final notification pops up on their screens. The agents realize that the impossible mission is finally over, and a massive cheer erupts from the entire building. Dojun and the other heroes had finally cleared out all the major threats. The final notification flashes across the screen. Rift Zone B041 has officially been closed. Back at the Brazilian Association, a massive cheer erupts from the exhausted agents, celebrating that the nightmare is finally over. An assistant rushes into Chairman Lopez's office to deliver the good news. All rifts within a 500-kilometer radius of Santarém have been successfully cleared. Lopez lets out a deep sigh of relief, realizing they've finally put out the biggest fire. He confirms that all dark mana rifts are gone and decides that everyone deserves a break, ordering a grand celebration party for all the heroes and staff. That night, a lavish outdoor party is held at the association building, with plenty of food, live music, and drinks to honor everyone's hard work. During the festivities, Dojun and his team approach the chairman. Dressed in formal attire, they tell Lopez they've come to say their goodbyes because they plan to return to Korea immediately. Lopez is completely caught off guard and panics, asking why they're leaving so soon when there are still many other rifts left to handle. He tries to convince them to stay until the entire operation across the country is finished, but Dojun doesn't budge. He calmly reminds the chairman that their team was only ever in charge of the Santarém region, and since that specific job is done, they are heading home. Lopez is left standing there, sweating and speechless, as he realizes he has no way to force the man who just saved his country to stay any longer. Chairman Lopez desperately asks if at least Dojun can stay behind, but Dojun doesn't seem interested. Not giving up, Lopez pulls him aside for a private conversation. The rest of the team watches them walk away, doubting he'll stay since he's already made a fortune and collected rare materials like blue croco hearts during his stay. Nearby, a guild member teases Yuan, pointing out that she clearly doesn't want to part with him. Yuan gets flustered and tries to deny it, but her face turns bright red. Suddenly, they notice a beautiful woman in a red dress talking to Dojun. Her friend calls the woman the White Fox and pushes Jueon to go interrupt them before things go too far. She warns Jueon that standing face to face with a beauty like that might make Dojun forget everyone else. Jueon freezes up, watching them from a distance as the red-dressed woman tells Dojun to think carefully, mentioning that this is a great opportunity for him. Jueon starts overthinking, even imagining the two of them living together and making food. The woman tells Dojun she'll wait for his answer, and you can contact her whenever he wants. Dojun casually says he'll think about it. Jueon is baffled by how calm he stays despite the woman's beauty, briefly wondering if he's just not interested in women at all before snapping out of it. Seeing a chance, Dojun then asks the woman for a favor. Dojun asks her for an invitation to this year's gold market, a world-class auction held annually in Las Vegas. She laughs and agrees, but adds a condition. He has to visit her house a week before the event starts. Watching this from the sidelines, Jueon fumes with jealousy, imagining the worst. The woman then sends a VIP membership QR code straight to Dojun's phone, making Jiyeon wonder how on earth she already got his number. Just then, a man named Kang Young-pyo walks up to them, laughing loudly. Juyeon immediately gets a bad feeling, sensing that he's about to cause some serious trouble. Young-pyo tells everyone to relax, claims he just wants to introduce a friend. With a sinister grin, he reveals that his friend is none other than Takashi. The atmosphere at the party turns cold instantly as Dojun comes face to face with the man he previously clashed with. He looks more than ready to settle their score. As Takashi approaches, Chairman Lopez immediately breaks into a cold sweat, internally panicking because he purposely didn't invite the hero just to avoid this exact situation. Unfazed, Dojun looks at Takashi and casually notes that his body seems fully healed. Takashi glares back, stating that thanks to him, he had a very good experience. Dojun simply brushes it off, saying that if it was good for him, then that's fine. Desperate to stop a fight from breaking out, Lopez nervously steps between them. He tries to play it off, claiming he only left Takashi off the guest list because he thought the party might be too much for his recovery. He quickly points toward a comfy sofa and urges Takashi to go sit down and relax. Annoyed that Chairman Lopez is trying to calm the situation, Young Pyo decides to push harder so his carefully prepared setup isn't ruined. Acting like a concerned friend, he loudly tells Takashi to go rest, mockingly asking if the wounds Dojun gave him still hurt. He then raises his voice for the entire party to hear, asking Takashi if he ever got an apology. He insists that no matter what happened, Takashi deserves an apology since he was the one who took the hit. Takashi just stands there, clenching his trembling fist in silent rage. The atmosphere grows incredibly heavy. Chairman Lopez, Yeon, and the White Fox sweat nervously, waiting for a fight to break out. Instead of backing down, Dujin casually stands there holding his wine glass. He calls out to Takashi, and with his eyes suddenly glowing with an intimidating light, he bluntly asks him, "Yakuza are shit, right?" Dujin continues his provocation, casually asking if the Yakuza are just useless trash to society. Shockingly, a voice immediately agrees, shouting out that they are indeed trash. Watching this bizarre interaction, Yu Young gets a strong sense of deja vu, feeling like she has definitely seen the exact scenario play out before. Thoroughly confused by his friend's sudden outburst, Young Peel grabs Tashi by the shoulder and demands to know what he's doing right now. Tashi slowly turns to look back at him. His eyes are now glowing an eerie red, showing he's completely under Dojun's influence. Sweating and unable to control his own actions, Takashi raises his smartphone, revealing an audio recording file queued up and ready to play for the entire crowd. The recording continues to play for everyone to hear, exposing Takashi's disgusting intentions. His voice echoes from the phone, casually mentioning how he wants to target Gloria next, or even Yuyeon since she seems like a virgin. Carrying this, both women look on in absolute horror and disgust. Meanwhile, young Pyo just stands there, completely blank and unable to stop the audio from playing. Watching the chaos perfectly unfold, Dujun smirks. With his left eye glowing an eerie red, he notes to himself that he didn't expect his mind-controlling skill, the lynx's eye, to be this effective. Young Peel curses the idiot Yakuza for completely ruining everything. Knowing the situation is already beyond repair, he realizes that letting Takashi keep talking will only make things even worse for him. Deciding to shut his former ally up right then and there, young Peel suddenly lashes out. Without warning, he violently swings his hand in a sharp chop and strikes Takashi directly in the chest. Young Pyo sprints away from the scene as fast as he can. Panicking, Yuyeon turns to Dujun and urges him to catch the guy quickly. However, she realizes Dujun isn't making a single move to chase after him. Confused, she points out that Dujun could have easily stopped the sudden attack from happening in the first place, asking why he just stood there and let it all play out. Instead of giving her an answer, Dujun simply flashes a knowing smirk in the dark. The events of that night spread across the world in an instant. The leaked recording causes a huge scandal, bringing unimaginable shock to both Korea and Japan. While both governments and their hero associations try to avoid the public backlash, the media relentlessly reports on all of Kang Young-pyo and Takashi's past actions every single day. Watching the news coverage of the chairman on her monitor, a woman sitting in her office shatters her teacup in a fit of rage. Her hand trembles as she violently slams it onto her desk. With her orange eyes glowing with anger, the fierce woman grits her teeth and screams, calling Takashi and Young Pyo a bunch of idiots and bastards for the massive mess they just created. The fierce woman, furious over the leak, shatters her teacup and vents her rage. A terrified bald man, Director Lee cautiously enters the room to find her standing amidst the debris, clearly having destroyed the place in her anger. He stands nervously as she sits back down, lighting a cigarette to steady herself. When she demands to know the status of Kam Young-pyo, Director Lee reports that Interpol and the World Hero Alliance are actively hunting him down. Despite their efforts, there has been no news that he has been caught yet. The woman exhales a cloud of smoke, muttering a dark curse at the man who caused them all this trouble. The woman expresses her hope that Young Pyo dies while resisting arrest. She then presses Director Lee on whether they have successfully cut all loose ends. He assures her that they have taken every possible measure, confirming that their financial accounts, contact networks, and even the relevant CCTV footage have all been quietly cleaned up. Sensing he's still nervous, she asks if something is bothering him. He doesn't answer, and she suddenly tosses her personal phone at him. Startled, Lee catches the device and asks if it's a phone. She snaps back, asking if he's blind, and points out that it's her private number, one that only her family members should know. Visibly shaken, she tells him to read the most recent message, leaving Lee stunned as he stares at the screen. The message on the phone is a direct threat, demanding cooperation and warning that refusal will lead to the leak of evidence. Signed by K. Director Lee wonders aloud if it's from Kang Young-pyo, but the woman snaps at him, demanding why that matters. She screams that even being associated with him is a massive liability. In her fury, she hurls an object at Lee, ordering him to get out immediately. Terrified and realizing that he's in deep trouble if things go any further, Lee scrambles out of the room, desperately looking for a way to save his own skin. As he steps out, he is suddenly confronted by a powerful, imposing figure standing right in front of him, Seo Gam-chol, the chairman of T Group and the father-in-law of Hong Hee-ju. The intense aura coming from the chairman leaves frozen in pure terror. As the director flees, Chairman Seo Gam-chol enters the room, towering over his daughter. Startled, she stammers, "Father!" But before she can explain, he swings his arm and delivers a brutal slap that sends her reeling. Trembling, she clutches her face as he looms over her, his eyes blazing with rage. He asks if she truly thinks he's just some useless old man. He strikes her again, his voice booming as he exposes her secret. He knows she paid Kang Young-pyo to have Seo Do-jung killed. Visibly shaken and terrified, she cowers before him. The chairman sneers, clearly unimpressed that his own bloodline is an S-rank hero, and declares with a twisted grin that he intends to bring Do-jung back home. Seo Gyeong-chul sneers at his daughter, noting how P Group had grown arrogant because of Jang Song-ho, but he feels that the heavens are still backing him. He tells her they need to decide how to deal with her actions first, leaving her trembling in fear on the floor. As chaos continues to surround Kong Young-pyo and the scandal, Dojin and his group finally board a plane back to Korea. Looking out the window, Dojung reflects on how profitable the expedition was, having gathered both plenty of materials and money. Yuyeon leans in, unable to contain her curiosity any longer, and asks him a direct question. Did he let Kang Young-kyo go on purpose? Dojun simply smiles to himself and replies that is exactly how it leads to the next stage. Dojun finally returns to Seoul, South Korea. He takes his younger sister out for a burger, watching her happily devour her meal. Everything seems normal on the surface, but once he gets home, he is hit with a harsh reality. Dojun is shocked to find his grandmother's health has severely worsened. Upset, he asks why they didn't go to the hospital, or even contact him. His sister starts crying, explaining that they didn't want to use the money he risked his life to earn. She reveals that their grandmother specifically told them it should not be spent carelessly. Dojun firmly tells his grandmother that going to the hospital because she is sick isn't a waste of money. He reassures her that he earned a ton of money in Brazil, so she doesn't need to worry about the cost. He urges her to stop holding back, and promises to take care of everything from now on. Moved by his words, Dojun immediately admits his grandmother to Korea's best hospital. He begins visiting her every single day alongside his sister, Eun-young, and grabbing burgers together becomes their new daily routine. Dojun heads to the Gasan Hero complex to meet with a skilled blacksmith. Upon inspecting the rare blue croco heart Dojun brought, the blacksmith is clearly impressed by its pristine condition, noting he's never seen one so good. He confidently tells Dojun that with this he can forge a sword far better than expected and estimates it will take about 3 weeks to finish. Dojun then asks if the blacksmith can take on another request, and the craftsman immediately agrees, saying he'll do anything for him. Dojun pulls out a bag containing a Belcara thread and a venom sac. The blacksmith assumes Dojun wants custom armor and asks if he should size it to his body, but Dojun simply says no. Dojun explains that the armor is for his younger sister. The blacksmith is shocked, noting that armor made from Belcara thread is incredibly rare and valuable, and he wonders if his sister is a hero too. Dojun just smiles and shows him a photo of her on his phone, leading the blacksmith to agree she's a lovely young lady. Dojun asks him to make the armor look like normal clothing instead of a combat suit, which the blacksmith agrees to easily. However, the craftsman hesitates, pointing out that kids grow extremely fast, and she might outgrow the custom piece in just a year or two. Dojun just smirks and pulls out a bottle of a mysterious green liquid, asking him what he thinks it is. Dojun explains that it is Talafu's essence, which increases the elasticity of fabric materials tenfold when combined. The blacksmith is stunned, noting that Talafu is just a very common plant-type monster. As Dojun hands it over and prepares to leave, the blacksmith wonders where on earth he learned such obscure crafting tricks, recalling how he also knew to use Cyclops' blood last time. Dojun simply pauses and tells him it's because this is his second life, before walking away with a smile. Meanwhile, in the city, a man in a sharp suit walks down the street with a serious expression, heading toward an unknown destination. The man in the suit heads down a staircase into a place called Paradise Cafe. Looking around the basement setting, he thinks to himself that the owner doesn't seem very tasteful, but that privacy makes it the perfect spot to meet someone discreetly. Waiting at a table is a figure in a hoodie. The man introduces himself as Park Sung-wook, a former S-Group chief secretary who now works as a freelancer. As he hands over his business card, the person in the hoodie pulls back their own hood to reveal that it is So Dojun. Dojun explains that he reached out to Park Sung-wook because Hugh Jo-yoon recommended him as the go-to person for handling sensitive matters for chaebols and heroes. Park admits he handles almost anything as long as it doesn't cross legal lines, then orders an espresso. Dojun gets straight to the point, stating he wants to build a house. Park immediately suspects that since Dojun is coming to him instead of a construction company, he must be looking for something very unusual. Dojun confirms this, telling him he needs the safest house in the world. When asked for a location and budget, Dojun says he prefers Seoul and has a budget of 500 billion won. The massive figure makes Park choke on his coffee in total shock. Park wipes his mouth and jokingly comments that Dojun is planning to build a castle rather than a house. Dojun calmly replies that a castle might actually be better. Park is stunned again when Dojun suggests raising the budget to 1 trillion won. Trying to regain his composure, Park asks if Dojun knows that Chairman Oh Young-gun's home in Gangnam is currently considered the safest house in South Korea. He notes that while it's valued at 110 billion won on the market, the actual land and construction costs were only about 80 billion won. Park assures him that with his massive budget, he can easily build something far more impressive and secure than that. He sees the build as a modern self-profit, and he's barely been fought for some business. Park explains that Gangnam is off the table because buying land there is impossible, since no rifts have ever occurred in the area. Property prices have only ever gone up. He concludes that while they can definitely build the best house, securing the safest area is not going to be easy, and he asks Dojun what he wants to do. Dojun takes a slow sip of his drink and calmly counters that Gangnam isn't actually the safest place at all. He tells Park that the belief that Gangnam is the safest spot is just wishful thinking from the people who live there. Park questions if the safety of Gangnam is really just hope, and Doojan explains that it is actually an illusion created by the media. He insists that the fact that no rifts have occurred in Gangnam so far is just a complete coincidence. To prove his point, he mentions that even in his ruined world, rifts eventually appeared in every single region, with the only difference being the order in which they destroyed everything. Park is completely baffled when Dojang suggests buying land in the Guro district. He reminds Dojang that Guro had a rift years ago, and Mapo, which is nearby, recently had one too. Dojang simply dismisses the concern, noting that the Mapo rift was the one he cleared himself. When Park asks if there is some special strategic reason for choosing such a dangerous area, Dojang bluntly replies that it is simply because it is close. As he speaks, a massive, menacing rift tears open in the sky nearby, and a giant, demonic reptilian beast stomps out, shaking the ground. The giant reptilian beast lunges, but Dojang effortlessly deflects its attack with his new blade, instantly slicing through the monster's neck with a clean, powerful strike. He stands calmly in the aftermath, admiring how much better the sword turned out than he had expected. The blacksmith, equally thrilled, boasts that the sword is the greatest masterpiece of his life. He refuses to take any money, insisting that the high-quality materials Dojun provided were reward enough for him. However, when Dojun insists, the blacksmith checks his phone and is completely floored to see a deposit notification for 1 billion won. Dojun explains that he doesn't like owing debts, which is why he paid the blacksmith so generously. He knows the sword he just received is worth hundreds of billions, and that it will make his future hunts much easier. After finalizing his deal with Park Sin-wook to build his house, Dojun spends the following weeks obsessively focusing on rift hunting. Buying 10,000 pyeon of land in the Guro district is a massive undertaking, requiring at least 400 to 500 billion won, a sum that could easily balloon if landowners decide to hold out. When Park suggests cutting costs by reducing the purchase area, Dojun simply tells him not to worry and declares that he will get the money himself. Dojun finishes off the giant beast with a single powerful strike. Later, as he carries his younger sister Yu-young home on his back through the quiet streets, she happily mentions how great it is that their grandmother will be discharged in a few days. She notices he has been incredibly busy lately, and tells him he doesn't need to visit the hospital every single day. But Dojun firmly insists that he will continue to do so. Just as they are walking, a car pulls up and blocks their path. A stern-looking man in his suit steps out, and confirms if he is indeed Seo Dojun. When Dojun asks why he is there, the man reveals that he was sent by Chairman Seo Gyong-chol. The man invites Dojun to get in the car, claiming he was ordered to take him comfortably. Dojun just smiles and asks Yoon-young to get off his back. He tells her to close her eyes for a moment, and as soon as she complies, Dojun moves with terrifying speed. In a blur of motion, he launches himself forward and delivers a brutal heavy kick directly into the side of the car, crumpling the metal and completely wrecking it. The man in the suit is left standing there, trembling in shock and unable to say a word. Dojun coldly tells the messenger to get lost and never return. As the man flees in terror, Dojun tells Yoon-young that he just scolded someone who tried to take her away. When she innocently asks if she can scold them too, he gently reassures her not to worry as he lifts her back onto his shoulders. Deep down, he harbors a lethal resolve. Anyone who dares to try and take his family away will be killed without exception. Meanwhile, Hyun Ju-yeon and her friend are having a dinner, discussing Dojun's plans to buy a house in Guro through a contact Ju-yeon introduced him to. When her friend asks what Ju-yeon intends to do, Ju-yeon declares that she is moving in right next door. She imagines herself as the classic woman living alone next door who knocks on Dojun's wall with a pot of soup to flirt. Her friend thinks she has completely lost her mind, but Ju-yeon is fully committed to spending her savings to make it happen. The red-dressed woman leans in close to Dojun, whispering that she wishes they could get closer. Back at the dinner table, Hyun Ju-yeon loses it, having a mental breakdown over the thought of them together. Her friend calmly points out that since Dojun is building a custom house, he is clearly planning to stay for a long time, so Yu-yeon's plan to move next door is actually a solid strategy. Yu-yeon awkwardly agrees, trying to play it cool while secretly considering moving her own place to be closer to him. Her friend teases her about getting nervous, calling her a power little fox. When Yu-yeon snaps at her to stop, her friend drops the teasing act and turns serious, telling her she wasn't joking about the move. Caught off guard, Yu-yeon stares in shock, only for her friend to smirk and clarify that she doesn't have the intentions that Yu-yeon is currently imagining. Her friend explains that their guild needs a powerful backer, so it's far better to hitch a ride on a sports car like Dojun, who is on a completely different level than other S-rank heroes. She mentions that she's planning to build a mixed-use building in the area to house their new guild office. Yu-yeon agrees it sounds like a solid plan, and they toast to the idea. Later, Dojun is called in for a private meeting with Chairman Na Tae-horm at the Korea Hero Association. The chairman notes that Dojun has been incredibly busy, closing 9 rifts in just the past 2 weeks. Since the payout is substantial, He personally summoned him to ask why he's in such a rush. He bluntly asks if Dojun is pushing himself so hard because he expects Korea to eventually face the same dangerous rift crisis that Brazil just went through. Dojun checks his phone to see that a deposit of 45.2 billion won has been received. When the chairman presses him on why he is so intensely focused on hunting, Dojun simply says he's just doing what's in front of him because he needs money to build a house. The chairman is stunned by the answer, only for Dojun to add that he also has something to ask him regarding the construction project. From that day on, things begin to change rapidly around the Guro district. Land deals start happening quickly in the areas Dojun is buying up, with everyone from Hyunju-yeon and Jung-in-ju to the chairman himself and the other members of the Silkflower Guild getting involved in the process. Word of Dojun's land purchases spreads, and soon enough, various heroes and real estate speculators jump into the mix, hoping to cash in. So Deong-chol catches wind of the trend and laughs maniacally, praising his own instincts and noting that blood really doesn't lie. He orders his subordinate to track down exactly where Dojun is buying and to snap up as much neighboring land as possible. The frenzy causes rumors to spiral out of control, drawing in even more buyers until land prices in Guro skyrocket. By the time the market went crazy, however, Dojun had already successfully secured his 10,000 pyong of land. He sits calmly with his blueprints, completely unfazed as he begins mapping out his plans for the site. Park is confused by Dojun's blueprints, pointing out that it only shows a tiny 150 pyong house on a massive 10,000 pyong plot of land. When he asks about the rest of the space, Dojun explains that they need to make the property safe. He shows him a design with a rounded outer wall, causing Park to ask if he's actually planning to build castle walls. Dojun mentions that because there is no complex interior work, the structure can be built quickly. When Park asks how he plans to file the usage request with the district office, Dojun casually tells him that Chairman Na Tae-hwan will handle that. Park is bewildered, wondering why the Hero Association chairman would need to be involved in a private construction project. Dojun reveals the true purpose. The entire site is intended to function as a controlled rift zone. Back at the association, Chairman Na Tae-hung confirms that So Dojun made a bold and unprecedented request. As Dojun maneuvers through the forest, expertly dodging and weaving through attacks from aggressive bird-like monsters, the chairman explains the nature of the demand to his subordinate. Dojun isn't just building a house. He has officially asked for permission to raise and tame monsters on his own private land. The subordinate is visibly shaken by the absurdity of the idea, but the chairman admits that he was just as surprised when he first heard it. Despite the risks, Dojun appears entirely serious about the plan, and as he walks toward a dark, mysterious cave entrance, a strange, high-pitched noise echoes from within. The chairman reveals that what makes the situation even more shocking is the specific monster Dojun intends to tame, the Caesarian. Inside the dark cave, a terrifying, massive serpent-like beast erupts from the shadows with a screech, its glowing red eyes locked onto Dojun. Unbothered, Dojun plants his sword into the ground and calmly tells the beast, "I'll go easy on you today." As the Caesarian strikes with its tail, Dojun dodges effortlessly, launching a counterattack that forces the creature to slam into the cabin wall. After an intense battle that lasts an hour, the monstrous Caesarian is left exhausted and panting on the cavern floor. Gojin approaches the defeated beast, calmly pats its head, and tells it to stay well, while promising to return again. With the beast now subdued and purring in submission, Gojin whistles a tune and walks away, having successfully broken the powerful creature's will. Dojun calls Hyunju-yo in the middle of the night, waking her up. He asks of Stoneman, deals in magic stone powder. Do-yeon is baffled, questioning why anyone would grind down such a precious material, noting that doing so usually causes the energy to leak away. When she asks why he needs it all of a sudden, Dojun just says he needs it for something. Do-yeon tries to pry further, but Dojun abruptly hangs up, leaving her standing there confused and annoyed as she stares at her phone. Dojun continues his hunt, easily dispatching monsters while thinking about the construction of his safe house. He knows the most basic requirement is a strong outer wall, and has already planned to station powerful monster guards inside. To complete the final layer of protection, he needs a specialized device to suppress external shocks like earthquakes, which is exactly why he needs the magic stone powder. Just as he finishes his thought, a massive cyclops attacks, but Dojun expertly dodges, already planning how to turn the monster's own strength against it. Dojun dodges the Cyclops' massive attack, and in one fluid motion, he manifests a swirling subspace portal directly onto the monster's chest. With the portal anchored, he draws his blade and readies a powerful technique. He channels his energy, declaring the Bandion family sword art, third form, Spira Frehedo Catasta. Dojun unleashes the technique, raining down a spiral of destructive energy upon the Cyclops. The monster stares up in terror as the brilliant burning attacks home in on it. With a massive series of explosions, the energy strikes the beast, obliterating it instantly as Dojun walks away from the wreckage. Dojun walks over to the remains of the defeated Cyclops and retrieves a precious magic stone. With a firm grip, he crushes the stone into powder, capturing the resulting energy in a small container. He muses that since rifts are fundamentally external shocks, this substance might be powerful enough to suppress them entirely. He hopes that would be the case, as it would make his task much easier. Meanwhile, while Do-jun continues his grueling routine of hunting monsters and visiting his grandmother in the hospital, the media and government officials are busy preparing for a major press conference. A massive piece of news hits the public. Hiroseo Do-jun is officially revealed to be the grandson of the T-Group chairman. Watching from afar, the chairman chuckles to himself, satisfied that the rumor has spread. He knows that no matter what Do-jun says now, the public will only ever see him as a diamond spoon who got ahead because of his wealthy family's money. Across the country, people are already buzzing with cynical theories, claiming Do-jun must have used T-Group's massive fortune to buy his way into becoming an S-rank hero at such a young age. While everyone watches the live press conference to see if he'll deny the accusations, Do-jun stands behind the podium, cameras flashing in his face as he prepares to speak. At the press conference, Do-jun calmly reveals that he was born as an illegitimate child and was abandoned at a young age. This bombshell stuns the audience, including those who had come to criticize him. Do-jun proceeds to clearly and concisely describe the life he actually lived, and his honesty starts to shift the public's perception. Even people who are initially skeptical begin to sympathize with him after seeing supportive posts from his former school friends and emotional interviews on TV with his past part-time job bosses. The public's opinion turns in his favor, with netizens calling his character God tier. Consequently, the T-Group's stock price, which had been climbing in anticipation of the scandal, suddenly plummets by 30% in an instant, leaving the chairman back home absolutely devastated. Checking in with his contact at the construction site, he learns the outer walls are finished and the house itself is nearing completion. Do-jun is eager to move in as soon as possible, determined to finalize his fortress. The construction manager vows to build the home with extreme care, and Do-jun promises to pay double the cost if they can finish it within 10 days. Before leaving, Do-jun gives one final order. No one is to enter the site tonight. Under the cover of darkness, Do-jun walks onto the empty construction site. Determined to fortify his base, he decides to pour every single magic stone he has gathered into the foundation. He places the stones on the ground, and as he activates his power, a massive glowing magic circle erupts to life, enveloping the area in a powerful surge of energy that begins to seal and protect the site. Do-jun embeds the top-grade magic stones into the foundation, watching as a brilliant magic circle activates and stabilizes. To further ensure the security of his base, he pours the prepared magic stone powder over the circle to suppress any potential variables. With the site now fortified, he sets off to secure his guards. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit parking garage, a confrontation unfolds. Do-jun reveals that he knows Kam Young-pyo was the one behind the K moniker who threatened him. A frantic and terrified woman, the chairman's daughter, is seen arguing with a hooded figure, screaming at them to finally bring her Do-jun's head, blaming them for failing to handle the background checks and previous plots she paid them to carry out. The chairman's daughter taunts Young-pyo, pointing out that he's been tossed aside by his own family and in-laws and is now venting his frustrations on her. Young-pyo bristles, retorting that he isn't exactly thrilled with his situation either. He claims he's restraining himself from destroying the people who ruined his life so that he can stay focused on taking down Seo Do-jun. When she mocks him, asking if he's actually afraid of Do-jun, Young-pyo explodes. He snaps at her to shut her mouth and stay hidden, warning her that a fight between S-rank heroes is no child's play. He explains that while grabbing Do-jun's family would be an easy win, Do-jun is far too cautious and never leaves their side. He declares that he's holding back, ready to wipe out the entire family if he has to, and furiously rejects the idea that he's scared of that brat. Young-pyo grabs the woman by the throat, violently choking her as he declares that no one he has sworn to kill has ever survived. He sneers at the idea that Do-jun can protect his family forever, swearing that the moment Do-jun slips up, they will become his prey. He orders her to shut up and stay out of his way, vowing to grind Do-jun to dust himself, no matter what it takes. The scene shifts to a grim, dark castle under a stormy sky. Inside, the halls are filled only with Death Knights. There is no single boss monster to target, just an army of elite undead. Do-jun observes 3 of them standing guard at the entrance, noting that while they aren't bad, they are definitely not easy to hunt. The Death Knights are incredibly dangerous because they lack physical forms and feel no pain. To defeat them, Do-jun must precisely strike the core of their soul, otherwise, they simply won't fall. Since they retain all the advanced sword skills they honed while they were alive, each one fights with a unique and fierce style. Respecting their past, Do-jun decides that fighting them barehanded would be beneath them, so he engages them in a high-speed duel. As he clashes blades with them in the Grand Hall, he notes that this is exactly the kind of test he needs. Do-jun grins, clearly enjoying the challenge, and declares that he loves sword fights just as much as they do. He mentions that he's been wielding a sword since he could first walk, and he's determined to clear the entire room using only the secret techniques of the Bandian family. He intentionally avoids using any other martial arts, treating the self-imposed handicap as a fun way to test his skills. As he dodges and parries their attacks with expert precision, he strikes down another knight, leaving only one final enemy standing in his way. Do-jun effortlessly parries the final knight's strike, defeating it without much trouble. He looks around, clearly disappointed that none of the standard Death Knights were particularly strong or stood out from the crowd. Just as he turns away, however, he hears a noise behind him. He smiles as a much more imposing, distinct Death Knight, radiating the aura of an elite enemy, steps forward. The elite knight wastes no time, lunging at Dojun with incredible speed and power, forcing our hero to immediately engage in a much more serious duel. Dojun and the elite Death Knight trade rapid, heavy blows, their blades clashing with sparks flying across the hall. Impressed by the knight's skill, Dojun praises its sharpness, to which the knight responds by urging him to keep going, clearly enjoying the fight. As the duel reaches its peak, Dojun praises one of the knight's attacks right before he flawlessly maneuvers behind it and lands a decisive strike. With the knight forced down to 1 mi, Dojun points his sword at its neck and offers it a new purpose: to become his personal guard. Dojun successfully manages to recruit 5 elite Death Knights in just 2 days, feeling that all the effort was well worth it. With a wave of his hand, he summons his new subordinates, who stand ready to serve as his personal guard. Satisfied that his defense force is ready, he decides it's time to find a proper guard dog as well, and ventures into a dark rocky weir where a powerful beast lurks. The Khazarian recognizes Dojun as the human who visited before, and furiously orders him to get out of its nest. Dojun remains calm, telling the beast he isn't there to play, and ordering it to follow him quietly. Enraged by this arrogance, the Khazarian shrieks that he is nothing more than a bug, and lunges to kill him. However, the moment Dojun releases his true aura, the beast freezes in terror. It realizes that this human is completely different. He is insanely strong. Terrified and realizing it has made a grave mistake, the Khazarian flails as it instantly understands it is completely outmatched. Dojun commands the Khazarian to leave its nest and head outside the gate. The beast is initially shocked, desperate to stay in its home, but Dojun's intimidating gaze leaves it with no choice but to obey. They tear through the rift, emerging directly over a busy city street. Pedestrians on the crosswalk stop in their tracks, looking up in absolute terror as the massive, winged Khazarian looms over the urban skyline, and people begin screaming in panic at the sight of the monster. Dojun rides the Khazarian through the city, calmly telling the beast to be careful not to hit any buildings. The monster, however, is seething with resentment, shooting him a hateful look. Dojun immediately calls it out, asking if it's rebelling against him. Unable to contain its frustration, the Khazarian lets out a deafening roar, unleashing a wave of sonic energy that makes people on the ground below collapse in agony, clutching their ears as they scream in pain. Annoyed by the unnecessary chaos and how it's scaring the civilians, Dojun slams his fist against the creature's hide, forcing it to stop the noise. He bluntly reminds it to stay quiet and behave. Dojun and the Khazarian arrive at the Pacific Mariana Islands in the U.S. South Territory of Guam. He reflects on how rift zones can appear absolutely anywhere. He notes that if a rift opens on a remote island and the waves of monsters are allowed to repeat, that location effectively transforms into a demon cave, much like the chaotic scene before him, where a horde of terrifying monsters has already taken over the area. With a cold command, Dojun tells the Khazarian to go on a rampage and then return to him, and the beast lets out a savage roar as it charges into the fray. The Khazarian tears through the monster horde, brutally eliminating threats while Dojun casually walks through the battlefield. He stoops down to pick up a high-quality magic stone dropped by a fallen foe, smirking as he tells the creature to at least earn its keep. He adds that he'll make sure to walk it regularly, treating it like a pet. Soon after, Dojun's massive new house is completed, a sprawling structure with 1 basement level and 3 floors above ground, packed with the latest high-tech systems. As Yoon arrives at the property carrying Dojun's younger sister, she and the grandmother are left stunned, remarking that the place looks less like a house and more like a palace. Juno asks Dojun what the Khazarian is, and he nonchalantly compares it to raising a chicken in a country yard. She accepts this with a skeptical, "Right." Yeong excitedly asks if she can look around the house, and Dojun tells her she can touch whatever she likes, while the grandmother suggests she go inside with her. Once they are alone, Juyeon gets serious. She tells Dojun she has been sensing a creepy energy rising from underground, and asks if he is raising something else besides the Khazarian. Dojun dismisses her concern, telling her it's nothing dangerous, but compliments her on how sharp her instincts have become. Beneath the ground, dark, shadowy silhouettes are seen stirring, as Joyeon prepares to ask him something even more important. Dojun thanks Joyeon for looking after his grandmother and sister while he was away. He then asks her if she would like to have a meal together this weekend, just the two of them. Joyeon's heart skips a beat as she listens, stunned by his sudden invitation.